The stories of my demise were greatly over-exaggerated. We are back again. Would have liked to have streamed sooner, but I got completely blocked on the AI for the game. And not really the logic for the AI, but I have been trying for the past several days to get this guy here to orbit the player, and that was a much more complicated problem than I ever thought it would be. And the solution is so simple. So first off, there's now enemies in the game. Let me go ahead and launch it, and we'll just get right into what it currently looks like. So obviously, main thing, I went in and changed the environment. Not really anything special there, just tweaked the settings, and of course all the enemies clump up. Added this giant planet down there that's just made out of some basic meshes and noise textures, nothing fancy. I fixed the issue with the gun not shooting where it was supposed to be shooting. It was a really simple fix. It was just I needed to add the player's velocity to the velocity of the projectile, and that completely fixed that problem. You still need to lead targets, but I think that's much more reasonable. I did this really cool effect for the shooting star that you're supposed to be capturing. Really easy to do. I should actually try and hit these guys. I'm putting on a poor show. So you can see they are orbiting like crazy around me, which is exactly what I wanted. I don't know why they clump up sometimes. They're not set to collide with each other, and I don't really get that, but you can still boost. These guys have a nice trail around them, so you can kind of see them when they get out of your vision. And that's pretty much where we're at so far. They don't have any way of attacking back. Oh, I guess that is one thing I can show. If I ram into the shooting star here, you can see it actually takes some of my health. So there is a hurt box around. Well, like I was saying, there was a hurt box around that, and those two enemies just found out the hard way. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at. There's really not a lot else going on here at the moment. This orbit code was a pain in the ass to get working, though. The first thought I had was I tried to do a spherical coordinate system, which I'm not going to get too much into what that is, but my thought was spherical coordinates have 3 dimensions, just like Euler or Euler angles, but 2 of them are angles. So my thought was I can just keep incrementing the angle and it'll make the enemy circle around the player. Does not work that way at all. For one, I found out that gimbal lock still applies to spherical coordinates. I never really thought about it before, but it does still apply, and that creates a bit of a problem. The other issue is that spherical coordinates have a radius, an inclination, and an azimuth. And it didn't occur to me that inclination is bound between 0 degrees and pi, or 180 degrees, or 90 and negative 90, however you wanted to find it. So the problem is if you just keep incrementing it, you run into a problem where when inclination goes past 180 degrees, it resets, and then it inverts the azimuth. And when that happens, if you try to increment it again, it just flips back the other way. And you end up with an issue where the enemies will hit the bottom of their loop, and then they get stuck because they're just flipping back and forth. So ultimately what I did instead was a lot more brute force and a lot less clever. So if we come in here into the enemy code, you can see too some of the components I've got on it. Basically, well, first off, we have this aligned to velocity. So the enemies are just artificially pointing either in the direction they're moving, or they're pointing so that the top of the ship faces the player, which I think it just gives the player an easier time of seeing them. So that's all we're doing there. We're just using look at and just deciding which vector is up, whether or not they have a target. For orbit, we're getting the transform of the thing they're trying to orbit, and we're basically just converting their position into the local coordinates, so like relative to the thing they're trying to orbit. And then we're just doing a little bit of math to try and calculate, well, not even really math here. We're just rotating a vector, basically. So I ripped out all the attempts of doing sine, cosine, arcsine, arctan, everything else that I was trying to do with spherical coordinates. And we're just using Godot's rotated vectors and then the one interesting thing I'm doing is, where is it? I think it's down here. I rotate the transform of the player, or at least a copy. I take a copy of the player's transform and then I rotate it a random amount. And every enemy has a specific random amount they rotate it by. And that means that instead of every enemy circling directly in front of the player's view, some of them are trying to circle at an angle to the player. So I really like how this looks. The only thing I'm not in love with is the fact that the enemies clump up a lot, which is kind of annoying. You can really cheese them by making them run into the shooting star. But I think it's a lot of fun. It at least right now, it's pretty enjoyable to try and angle yourself to actually hit them. Especially with how many there are. The only problem I've got at the moment is that sometimes they kind of disappear from your view because they end up orbiting behind you. Or not orbiting behind you, but they spend so much time behind you that you get impatient and you start turning around trying to find them, and then inevitably you end up turning in the opposite direction or in the same direction they're moving. So it just feels like they're missing. So there's a little bit of a problem with that. I might need to add some kind of indicator to them to show where they currently are, like an on-screen HUD. Like right now, yeah, see, I wasn't sure where this guy was. Which to some degree, looking for him is part of the fun. But like right now, are they all gone, or is there just one outside my view that I'm not seeing? It's hard to tell. So that's something I kind of need to work on. The other issue, if I restart the level here, is you can't boost away from them. To get their orbiting behavior to move the way I like, their max speed is actually as fast as the player when they're boosting. So if I boost away from them, that's not a good example. I need one that's in front of me. Okay, here's one. So if I boost, notice that you can kind of catch up to them, but it's not very fast. You basically run out of boost by the time you catch them, which shows that they're able to catch up to me just as fast. So the problem I have with that is it feels like the boost mechanic either needs to be a longer boost, or I may need to implement some logic where if the player is boosting, the enemies just stop following them, to make it feel like you've escaped them. Because that was kind of the intent all along, is that the boost would be less a time-saving feature and more of an evasion tactic. So I might need to do some logic to just say, if player is boosting, stop tracking for some amount of time. Probably give a grace period after you quit boosting too, so that you can actually turn around and see them. There is some funky stuff going on with the trail behind him. I also don't think I'm going to leave this trail. I need to find a better way of doing it, because right now that's 64 particles behind every single enemy. And it's one thing for the particles coming off the star, but for the ones coming off the enemies, it's a little too much. There is kind of a trick I think I can do though. If I just stretch the particles out horizontally, I might need fewer of them. So we've got that to look at as well. But the main thing I want to work on today is, right now I think all the enemies are gone, but where's the gameplay loop? There's no way to lose. Even if you lose all your health, the game doesn't end just because you lost all your health. So I need some kind of game over condition, and I need a way to win. And this is where I was thinking about it, and I don't think the original plan is going to be feasible. The original idea was that you were going to do multiple missions, and in between the missions you were going to have a store where you could buy parts using the credits you've collected, install them into your ship for a bonus to like your ammo or to your health or whatever. The problem is I really don't have a lot of time left, and factoring in that I'm going to need about a day for the polish, if not 2, and a day to handle, last minute bugs and the submission. We really don't have a lot of time left. So I think the upgrade system tentatively is out of the question. It's either out of the question, or it's going to be a lot simpler and not an inventory system, because I don't think I have time to try and build a grid-based inventory, not with the time I've got left. Maybe I could do one with weight, but I don't know. I don't want to go down that path and then end up with a game that's half finished. So what I want to focus on is how this level is going to work, and I'm going to try and get this level fun, and then we'll decide whether or not we're going to make more. This may just be a single level game, and I may turn it into more of like a score or a time trial type thing. What I want to do though, I was thinking, I want the star here to slowly degrade over time from the enemy ships trying to harvest it. I think that plays into the narrative pretty well. And the idea will be that some drones are going to fly out and start zapping the ship with like mining lasers like Eve or something. And you have to shoot them so that they stop draining the star. And the level will not end until you shoot all of the drones that are attacking you. So you have to shoot the actual enemy drones, but at the same time, while you're hunting them down, you have to pay attention to the star and make sure that there aren't too many mining drones trying to harvest it. So the general idea is that it's expected that the star is going to take some amount of damage while you're playing, and you're just trying to minimize it by balancing whether or not you're going on the offense or the defense. So for that, I'm going to need a couple things. The star is going to need a health bar, and I'm going to need some way to track it so that I know when the game is won. I think the thought is going to be that you'll probably get some number of credits just for enemies destroyed, but it'll be nothing compared to the number you get if you capture the star. And I may even just make it a game over if the star gets fully mined. But the other thing I want to do is there's this issue with the enemies clumping around me if I restart the game. And right now they don't attack me, but when I implement the attack behavior, this is going to be way too many enemies attacking at once. And even though I like this number of enemies being in the level, this is just too many circling around me. So what I think I want to do is make it so that there's a limit to the number of enemies that can be actively engaging the player, and that the rest are probably going to be in some kind of idle mode where they're just circling around some random point in the map. So that's the plan for them. Now I'm going to need a system to coordinate that. So my plan is to give the game a very basic director system, so that we'll just track how many enemies are actively engaging the player, how many enemies are supposed to be in the map, and dynamically spawning in enemies, because the enemies aren't just fixed in the map. There's a spawner in the map. So it will be in charge of spawning in the enemies and deciding how many of them can actively attack the player. On the first day, I created a mission object, and I think what I'll do is I'll put some parameters on that mission object that say how many enemies can be actively hunting the player at a time. Maybe even abstract that out to like an aggressiveness scale, or maybe that'll be a separate thing for how often they shoot you, or probably more accurately how often they hit you. And then probably put in a rate of how often the mining drones spawn in. And that way I can make very adjustable difficulty. So with that said, I think the first thing is I need to get the game loop implemented. So before we start looking too much at the director, the win condition is that you shoot all of the attacking enemies. So I'm going to need to know how many are supposed to be in the level, and how many have been shot. That should be relatively easy to wire up. Then I need a condition to check the health of the star. So the game class is going to need to know how much health the star actually has. There's a couple different ways I could do that. I could either have the stars emit a signal when it takes damage, and have the game class find the star in the scene, subscribe to the signal, and just assume that the star is at 100% at the start of the game, and every time it takes damage, it'll just internally update that percentage. I'm kind of leaning that way because it's relatively simple. The other option is that, like the enemies in the player, I create a spawner and the game spawns the star in, and then it has direct ability to query the star itself. The only problem with doing that is it's kind of tedious, and it doesn't really make sense to have a spawner. Well, it just seems tedious. I think that's really the best reason. There are a few other things I need to do as well. outside of polish. So right now the gun is still not reclaiming the shot bullets. So if you shoot all 500 of them, it starts to lag pretty bad. And my system's decently powerful, so I can only imagine that it's not going to run great on other systems unless I do something about that. So first things first, let's go into mission and let's start building out this director system so that I can figure out how many enemies there are and how well it's going. So let's see, do I have mission open? I do not. Okay, so we will go down here to mission and we're going to add some variables. So we will say drones or fighters, and we'll just set that to 0 by default. Oh, we'll set it to 1. Doesn't make sense to have 0. Export var, and then we'll say minors and int. We'll start that off at 0. I was thinking if I have time to do multiple missions, I might hard code it so the first mission has no minors and the second mission will introduce them. That way I can kind of slowly introduce the players to the mechanics, but we'll see. I think for the moment, I think what I will do is add in here a well, actually we'll say max minors, and we'll set that to like 3 or 0 or whatever, and then we'll do minor spawn delay, because it occurs to me I need a limit, because that would be unfair if the minors just infinitely spawned. So we'll just set the maximum that can be in the level, and they will just spawn infinitely until you destroy all the fighters, which is why I kind of want to introduce them in the second level, because I think players might get confused and think they have to destroy all the minors when it's actually the fighters they have to destroy. And there's some stuff I can do in the UI. If the UI tells you how many fighters are left and puts like a logo indicating fighters, then that would help. Okay, so I think I'm going to set that to, I don't know, 15. I want to use some reasonable defaults here. All right, I think that should be fine. I haven't implemented the minor yet. We'll come back to that. So now down here, we're going to make a new script, and we're going to call this the director. And if you're not familiar with what a director is, it's a term coined by Valve for the first Left 4 Dead, and it's just any system that, for lack of a better term, it just monitors how the players are playing the game and tweaks it to make sure they're having fun, or to make sure, well, ultimately that's the goal. More accurately, it is tweaking the game to match some specifications the designers set. So in Left 4 Dead, it monitors the player's stress level and decides how often to spawn enemies and how many enemies to spawn, but it also takes cues that the designers code into the map. It's really cool. I did something like that for Project Upsilon, which is a prototype multiplayer game I made. It has a director that does something very similar to that. Okay, so the director is going to need a reference to the mission so it knows what it's supposed to be doing. It also occurs to me too, one of the things I did with the enemy spawners, they actually take a provider to generate the enemy, and then they will just be responsible for adding the enemy to the scene. So the director is going to have to be responsible for loading the enemy's scene, because I don't want to just put that directly in the director, because that'll make the game slow to load initially. Okay, so I think then the mission needs a fighter scene. I was initially thinking that I could do something really cool, like what do you call it, like multiple waves where there'd be different enemies that could spawn in each wave. But that's just going to be too complicated. It's not worth doing that for this. So we will do fighter scene path. And we will just preemptively set that, I think, to the drone scene. And we will just grab the UID of that. There we go. And then I'm going to need to do the same thing with the miner scene. And for the moment, we'll just leave that one blank so that it errors out if I try to spawn it. Okay. Oh, I also added in some credits. So I was using a few Kenny resources, like the ship here is a Kenny ship and the particle is a Kenny particle. So Proto Jam has a framework for making your credits as resources. So I've just started adding those in. I really like this system because it makes it so that you don't have to keep a separate track of who you're crediting. You just add it to this resource, and then your credit screen can parse the resources and display them however you want. With previous jams, my credit screen was like a list of control nodes that I had to go in and constantly update, and it was a pain. Because you never know if a resource is going to make it into the final game or not. Because ideally, I'd like to use all my own stuff, but you know, I need to use something as a placeholder to get started, and I don't just want flying cubes everywhere in case I run out of time. Okay, so now the director, where do we put that? There it is. All right. So a few things I'm going to need. Enemies, I think, are just going to be spawned as soon as one is missing. But I'm going to need some kind of signals so that game can detect what's going on. And I also need some way to set the mission. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a start mission function. And we will take the mission in. Yeah, we'll just store it. And then we will do var remaining, or actually, we'll just do this. Remaining fighters, remaining miners, you know what, we'll go ahead and just store the mission. Okay, and instead we will do remaining fighters. Makes sense, so we'll initialize that. Remaining miners can change over time, so that should be fine. I'm also going to need to know how many fighters were destroyed, so we'll do var destroyed fighters int equals 0. And I'll probably track how many miners were destroyed too. Okay. And then I'm going to need a timer for the spawning. So we'll do miner spawn timer. Actually, for that one, I can just do timer.new. Okay. And then we will... Oh, also, that would help if that was an actual function. So then in ready, we will go ahead and set that to false, and we will add the timer. And we'll add it as internal. Okay. So now start mission. We will just do some quick checks in here for error handling. So if null does not equal the mission, then we will return. Not ret run. I always type ret run every single time. Let's say failed to start mission. Already playing a mission. All right. So then mission equals equals mission. We'll say remaining fighters equals to mission dot fighters. Remaining miners, same story. We'll do equals to mission dot max miners. Actually, I'm just going to say active miners. And actually that occurs to me. There's a few other things I need to add to mission while I'm at it. So we'll do max active fighters int equals 1. Or yeah, that's fine. And we'll do max active miners too. We'll change that name. Okay. So this got a little more complicated. So, remaining fighters is how many have yet to be spawned. Then we'll do var active fighters. Well, I'm debating whether or not I want all of the enemies to be spawned at the same time, or if I want there to be a cap on how many can be spawned at once. Okay, we're gonna do a couple things here. Max engaged fighters is 1. Max spawned fighters. Okay, this is getting very complicated now. I might regret this decision later. So, destroyed fighters. I think instead of doing remaining fighters, what I'm going to do is just keep lists of what is currently available. So, destroyed fighters is how many the player has destroyed, obviously. We have spawned fighters. And then var engaged. Actually, I like active more. We'll keep those in line. Okay. So then we have the same thing here, destroyed miners and active miners. The only reason I'm tracking destroyed miners is I might want to play that into the final score. Okay. So destroyed fighters 0, active fighters 0, engaged fighters 0. Okay, that all makes sense. So I don't need to do any of that. What I do need to do is set the spawn timer to start, and we will do mission dot miner spawn delay. I also in here need to set the callback. Let's see, how am I going to do that? I'm debating whether or not I want the callback to be running there or not, but I think it should be fine. So we will just do spawn timer dot timeout dot connect on miner spawn timeout. We'll just quickly make that function. We'll worry about that later. Okay. So we start that. I really don't think there's a lot else I need to do here, honestly. Well, I do need to preload some stuff, though. Destroyed fighters, active fighters, engaged fighters. Yeah, I think we're good there. I probably need to do an initial spawn of the enemies. So Oh, actually, too, this thing needs to know where the spawners are. So we're gonna do map parent, and we are going to keep some lists here. So we'll do enemy spawners. Okay, and we'll do func get enemy spawners. Okay, now I think I'm already doing that in game. So let me see. Yeah, there we are. We're actually just going to rip all of that out anyways. Come into the director. And there we go. All right, and then I do need to do, there's a really funky thing. Find children returns a type of node, but I need enemy spawner. And even though this function is only going to return enemy spawners, you have to cast it because Godot doesn't support that kind of generics or templating. It doesn't know that that's the type. So we're going to do an array for spawners. And basically we have to just set the elements of it. In fact, actually it might do it automatically with return values, but we'll just do append array and then just return spawners. There we go. So now I have a reference to them. And I'm going to do a quick check here to say if enemy spawners is empty, we're going to do a push error. Failed to start mission. No spawners. I might have this return an error, but I think I'm actually just going to have it emit a signal that we'll come back to. So I'm going to make a note here, because it's almost always better in a game, rather than crashing or just stopping, to return back to a known good state if you can, because it's really bad from a user experience to have the game crash like that. So like if you ship a game and there's one map that's broken, it's better to just have that map bounce you back to the main menu than it is to have that map crash the game when you try to load it, if at all possible. Okay, so now spawn, we're going to do spawn fighter. Yep, okay. Okay, so now we have that. I do need to implement the loading logic, but we're not going to do that synchronously. We're going to do that asynchronously. So we'll cycle back to that in a moment, but, well, I need to do that now, actually. So we'll do var fighter scene. Scene equals null. Then we'll do the same thing for minor scene. Okay. So then we're going to do something in here. We're going to do func load enemies. And Adobe. I regret ever installing Adobe Acrobat. That is the most obnoxious piece of software ever designed. Okay, so load enemies. I'm kind of thinking that we have two different enemies though. I think we're just going to do this as load enemy scene. We'll just stick to that. And we'll do path as a string. And we're effectively going to do the same thing that game does in here whenever it loads a map. So we're just going to copy that. And let's see. So we're going to take the path. Yeah, the one trick here is that I need to return the error. I need to know if there was an error. Well, okay, I think actually there's a relatively easy way around this. I can just return the scene, and I'll just do null. I don't really need to know the specific error code. Failed to load enemy scene. Okay, so then we'll just do return null. And we will do enemy scene. Actually, that's all I need to return right there. So we'll just do that. Okay. Actually, this I'm going to move down there. And I'm also going to rename this to play mission, because I think I'm going to want a separate start function, but we'll circle back to that. Okay, so now I need to load the enemy scene, and we're going to load mission.fighter scene. And we'll just do fighter scene equals. Really mad about that. Oh, load enemy scene is a coroutine, right? Yeah, so I have to remember that play mission is also a coroutine. And then we'll do same thing if fighter scene, if null equals. Actually, did I? Ah, yeah. Or no, that's right. But I had that backwards. So if the fighter scene is null, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to push an error. Failed to start mission. Failed to load fighter scene. And that's already going to get logged, so we're not going to worry too much about that. So now we need to do the same thing with the minor scene, which occurs to me that with the error handling, that is actually going to fail. So we'll need to do something about that. Yep. Got the minor scene path. We'll do the same thing here. Failed to load minor scene. Okay. So now the director should be loading all the enemies, and we've got the timer set up for the minor. So now that timer needs to actually do something. So how do I want to do this? So the reason I'm using a coroutine here, or not a coroutine, a callable for the spawner, is so that I can hook into the signals of the enemies and detect when they die, so I know when I should spawn more and when they've all been killed. But that means I do need to write that. Let's actually start with the minor, because it's got a callback to automatically spawn. So let's see. On the minor spawn timeout, I need to check if we have available minor slots to spawn in. So if active minors is less than mission dot max minors, then we will spawn. And even if it's not, then I need to restart. Or no, actually, I think I set one shot to off, right? Yeah. Okay, so this will just keep running, so I don't need to worry about manually restarting the timer. Okay, so then I think I'm just gonna do, oh yeah, we'll just do spawn fighter, and then we'll do fighter scene, or sorry, minor. Okay, and we will do a minor scene. Oh, right, I need to also pick a spawner. So for that, we will do var spawner enemy spawner equals enemy spawners dot pick random. And then we'll do that. And that's still, oh, right, because that's not a method. So we're just going to do an inlined function here, because it's easier to do it that way. So we will do spawn miner, or we'll say miner provider. That matches the variable name. Callable. Geez, I cannot type. And all this does is it takes no parameters and it just returns the spawned node. So in here, we are going to actually instantiate it. And before I forget, we'll pass that in. So we'll do miner equals, yeah, this is a slight hole in the logic, is that the enemies, because they are variable types, I actually don't know what type this could be. In hindsight, that was probably over abstraction there doing it like this, but we'll have to use some duck typing. So we'll do miner scene dot instantiate. And at the moment, there aren't any signals because I don't even have a miner scene yet. So we're just going to return it. What did I do? Oh, got the equal sign. Okay. And then the other thing I need to do is increment the number of spawned. In fact, actually, I'm just going to move this code into there and we're going to ditch having that callback. So if it's greater than or equal to that, then just return. Do anything. We'll just ditch that method. Perfect. And then down here, we will just take active miners and plus equals 1. And then once the miner has a signal, well, once the miner exists and has a signal, then I can hook into it to decrement it when one of them gets destroyed. Okay, so now I can do something similar for the enemies, or for the fighters, I should say. Okay, so spawn fighter, and we'll say active fighters is greater than or equal to max, or no. What did I call that? Oh, it's not saved. That's why it's not. I was gonna say, I thought I did call it that. Max, nope, not miners. Max spawned fighters. We're gonna rename that to active. Because max spawned makes me think that there's a limit to how many can be spawned in general. Which is really what this one is for. Okay, so max active fighters. There we go. Then we'll do active fighters, and in here we'll do fighter provider. And we'll do fighter scene. Okay. Now the fighter doesn't have a signal yet either, so that's also not going to work. And I'm not going to worry at the moment about engaged fighters. So, all right. Why is this mad? What is wrong with that? Destroyed fighters is going to be blah, blah, blah. Map parent. Oh, it's mad about that. Okay. So, get enemy spawners needs to take map parent. And that needs to be... There we go. We'll just do parent. All right, cool. So we've got that. So now the question is just how do we know when to spawn a fighter? When one fighter is killed, we should try to spawn another. Unless we've hit the maximum that can exist and they've all been destroyed, in which case we mark the game as over. And we need to spawn some at the start as well. So we will do a loop up here for 4. And we'll just do I in mission dot max active fighters, and we will spawn fighter. Okay, so that should start everything then. I think we're good. Just taking one last look at this. All of it seems fine to me. We are going to need some signals to detect when the game is over, but we'll need to implement the signals on the enemies to do that. So first thing I need to do is go to game, wherever it is, there it is, and in ready we're going to add the director. All right, so we will do add child director, and we are going to make that internal. Okay. And then in play mission, we're going to do director dot play mission, and we're going to pass in itself, and we're going to await that, because remember that is a coroutine. Now the player I'm going to leave under game, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to be hooked into for that, with game state and whatnot, so we'll just leave that be for now. And I think for simplicity's sake, we're going to go ahead and quickly make a minor scene. So we will call this a minor. And we're mostly going to copy similar stuff to what the drone had. So we're going to add a health component. I don't know, we'll give them like 5 health. And the source, let me double check. I think I need to configure that. 1 in 3. So unfortunately, I can't name these layers. There's a limitation in Godot that you can't create these custom layout of flags. You can do flags, but when they get exported, they're like checkboxes, and it's really obnoxious. So if you want to do this layout, you have to reuse one of the existing masks. So as far as Godot is concerned, these are collision or avoidance layers, and I don't want to name them because they're not actually avoidance layers. I just have to export them as that so that I can use these little checkboxes in the editor. So I'm going to uncheck 3 on this one, because 3 is like environmental damage, and I don't want the miners getting blown up by the sun they're supposed to be mining. We will need a death component, and we're going to link that to the health component, and that will just automatically deallocate this object whenever it gets no health. We are going to actually also change this type too. We're going to use I'm tempted to do it. I think we'll do a character body. I don't think I'm going to have them orbit the sun. I think what I'm going to have them do is just approach it, and then yeah, we'll see. I think I'm just going to have them approach the sun. The only tricky part is if multiple of them start to queue up. So I do want them to be able to move. So I think I will still do a character body for this. I might change that to just an animatable body. But the thing is, if they bump into each other, I want them to kind of naturally push each other out of the way. Okay, so we're going to do a sphere. I don't know. We'll set this to 1 for now. I don't know how big these are going to be yet. And they will collide. I don't know. What did I set the drone to? Just 1. Yeah, that's fine. Well, actually, they should be on. They should be on layer 4. Why is that? I don't know why I had the drone on layer 1. I don't think was right. Okay, there we go. So the miner has a shape. Now let's go ahead and give it a body. Well, first let's save it before I end up forgetting. So let's make a new folder, miner, save that. Okay, so I'm going to grab a Kenny asset for this. At least that's the plan. Hello, stream. Are you gonna capture the window? No? Okay. Let's try that again. That's weird. Huh. So the other day I had a stream where the OBS would not stop capturing my content browser, and now it won't capture it at all. Cool. That's interesting. Let me... Why are you doing this? That's really fun. Okay, let me try something. If we go manually back to standby. No? Wow. Okay. Let me fix something. Loading windows. There we go. Nothing like a little bit of live debugging going on. Okay, so this is just a program I have that stores all of my game assets that I've downloaded over the years. I'm not necessarily going to make a recommendation one way or the other about it. I'm not affiliated with them one way or the other, but I do think you should have something like this if you're doing a lot of game jams, because it makes it so much easier to try and find what you're looking for. You can tag stuff, you can record what license it is, which is really helpful, things like that. So if I'm looking for a spaceship and I just search for ship, that'd help if I'm at the root when I do that. I can come in here and I can also restrict it to only object files. So that's not really going to work. So I can try enemy. Now we've got some stuff there. Let's see, we can try space would probably be a good one. Space. Oh, there we go. So this just makes it really easy to actually find what you're looking for. So then I can go into that folder, and unfortunately it does not render OBJ models. So I need to look at the preview. Let's see, which of these look like a good mining ship that I could use? Kind of like the look of this double cockpit one. I want the mining ship to be fairly large so that it's easy to see it when it's near the shooting star. I also like this guy here. I believe there's a yeah, okay, there's a different one as well. So we'll take a look at that too. I kind of like this guy. Or actually, this one looks kind of good. It reminds me of the, if you've ever played Prey Moon Crash, there's a enemy called the Harvester. And it kind of reminds me of that. I think I like that guy. Because that's going to have a pretty big area, make it easy to see. So we'll just go into the OBJs. Now, the funny thing is that GLTF, in theory, is the format that you should want to import most stuff into Godot as, because it contains the most information. I don't know if it's an issue with Kenny or an issue with Godot, but Kenny assets in GLTF format do not import correctly into Godot for some reason. When you bring them over, the colors are really wrong every time. And I looked into this, and apparently it has to do with the way the lighting is defined when you export the GLTF. The way it was defined when those models were exported, Godot doesn't like it, or maybe it's not correct. I'm not sure, again, which way it is, but I would personally recommend that if you're going to be using Kenny assets, against what Kenny recommends, I would say use the OBJ ones. They import a lot cleaner from my experience. But back on the content browser thing, Kenny actually, I believe, has a content browser of their own now, specifically for their assets. Obviously, I use a lot of things that aren't Kenny assets, though. I have like some Pizza Doggy stuff and a lot of fonts and things, so I prefer to use this. But if you're not looking to pay for software, I would definitely give that a shot. Okay, so we're just going to export that and also make sure we export the MTL file. Sometimes with these Kenny ones, there's also a color map file you need to export. It looks like that's not the case here. And I actually remembered to minimize the window that time. All right, so now over here, I can just do a mesh instance, which is the main difference. If you import a GLTF into Godot, it imports as a scene, so you instantiate it. If you import an OBJ, it comes over as an actual mesh. All right, so we're gonna go back into 3D for that. And I'm probably gonna recolor these if I even use them. I don't know if I'm gonna have time to make my own stuff. Every jam I want to do that, but I usually end up running out of time. And at the end of the day, I would rather have more game than more unique assets. And I just like to keep track of that. I update the file names just so that I know where it came from. And while we're at it, we're going to go over here. And this is actually a different kit. Or actually, no, never mind. I was thinking that this was from the legacy kit. So we'll just keep the credits the same. And then over here, let's see, how big is the drone? The drone looks like it's about 4 meters by about 2.5. I want the miner to be bigger. So we're going to scale this guy up quite a bit. I kind of want to tweak the dimensions as well. So if you're using third-party assets in a game jam, something I highly recommend is kit bashing. So taking a bunch of assets and potentially just pressing them together, basically. Like take a gun and half merge it inside something else, or mess with the scale, just make it look a little more unique. So in this case, I kind of want this to be maybe a little bit wider. I think I want it to be a little taller as well. It's going to be hard to see with as thin as it is. Okay, that's looking a little better. And then I'm going to turn uniform scaling back on. We're going to scale it up a bit. I think I want it a little bit longer, so we'll turn uniform scaling back off. That's looking kind of interesting. I think the important thing is that the player is going to be able to see this thing from a distance. Blinding white and yellow aside. So we're just going to quickly drop this into the map as is next to the shooting star, just to make sure that you can actually see it. And in fact, actually, even before I do that, I am going to override that yellow, because that is not going to be viewable at all. I think purple is maybe a good option. Let's see, that's not the color. That's not the one I want. Is it this one? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So we're just going to pick a color here. I kind of like that. And then, let's see, I think, what color is this? Is this the main body? It is. Okay. So let's change that to something as well. Maybe that blue. Maybe I'm tempted to do a gray. I don't know how visible that's going to be against the skybox, but we'll go for this kind of greenish gray. I kind of like that. And then this thruster color, or at least I assume those are thrusters. Let's give that... Ooh, I kind of like that green. And then I think this last one is this back panel, I'm assuming. Let's see, what color does that change it to? Yeah, okay, that's just the back panel. We're going to, instead of doing a unique one, I'm just going to copy the body color. So we'll just do copy and then paste. There we go. Yeah, not ideal, but I think for testing this will be fine. So let's drop one in here. And then once we're happy with how it looks in game, I will hook them up to the mission spawner. Okay, well, they can't be that close. They're gonna have to be... Oh no, they blend in with the planet. Oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, Yeah, I made the planet blue and green so that the star wouldn't blend into it. Okay, let's try for a different color. This is why we test things. Let's go for more of a pink then. How does that look? Better. But considering the player is going to be like back here. Okay. A couple things. I think one, they need to be bigger. They're still too small. So let's bring them up in size again. I will turn uniform scaling back on. We'll do like 2.5 on this one. How does that look? Okay, that's better. Yeah, you're not going to miss that from a distance. And then this green does not work for me. So we're going to change that to something else. And it's hard to pick something that goes well with purple. Ooh, that's not bad. It doesn't really look like a mining ship, but you know what? Let's try the yellow. Actually, let's go for like a. There we go. Let's try that. How does that look? Okay, that does actually stand out. Okay, for now, I just want it to stand out. So, one last thing. Let's see what happens if one is directly overhead it. Okay, yeah, you can still see it. Good. So what I plan on doing is once they get close enough, they're going to send out a little mining beam. And that will be how you... That'll be another easy way to see them. I'll probably make that like a neon green or something. So now these... I only have one spawner in the level right now. And pro tip, if you're placing spawners, I recommend using a tool script to add a sprite to them, so I can see where the player spawner is and where the enemy spawner is because of these tool scripts. So I'm going to add another one in just so that we've got some variety with where they can spawn. And I'm going to drop another one over here. And we'll drop another one over there. Okay. Doesn't really matter if this is going to play well. We're just going to try it. And we're going to see what works. Okay, so in theory... oh, wait, I need to update the mission. That's right. Alright, so in here, we're going to go ahead and grab the miner scene. And we're just going to copy the path. Because again, if you plan on doing asynchronous loading, you do not want to use preload. Okay, so then the max active miners, for the heck of it, we're going to set it to like 8. And they're at 15-second spawn intervals. Oh, they don't have any logic, though. So they're just going to stay wherever they spawned in. And in fact, actually, no, worse than that, they're going to fall because they have gravity. No, I guess these guys don't. Oh, right, no, because they're... I need to add a script to these really quick. And we need to add motion mode equals floating. That way they don't just immediately fall. Although I guess I probably should have done that with the drones as well. Oh, that's why. Yeah, I forgot I did this. Oh, yeah, I did set it, of course. Yeah, I forgot that I set these in there. Okay. So we're going to do that here. And we're going to set these to collide with themselves so that they can push each other out of the way. The main enemies don't, because they're probably going to run into each other while orbiting the player. And I don't want them to hit each other when that happens. But these guys, I will let them do that. And all they're going to do is when they spawn in, they're going to find the star and then just move toward it. I might enable 3D obstacle avoidance as well, so that they kind of try to dodge each other, but we'll see. So now I need to go into the missions, and in test mission, I need to change the... Oh, I shouldn't have changed the script over here. We're going to set that back to 0. Okay, And then in here, we're going to change the max active miners of test mission to like 8. Max active fighters, we're going to set the total to like 15. I don't know. Max engaged, we're going to do like 3. And max active, we're going to do like 10. All right, now here's where we find out if I broke everything. Okay, well, the enemies spawned in. So in 15 seconds, I should see a miner pop up somewhere around here. Ah, and it crashed. Expected indented block after function. What? Oh, what? Was that W there the entire time? Oh. On mission is null. Invalid access to property or key max miners on a base object. Really? Is it not called max miners? Oh no, I renamed it. That's interesting. It didn't detect that there was a syntax error there. Or not a syntax. It didn't detect that that was wrong. That's kind of interesting. I wonder why it didn't detect that. Is that not typed correct? No, it is. Huh. Okay, well. Yeah, actually one other thing. On test mission, I'm going to reduce the spawn rate, or reduce the spawn delay to like 5 seconds. So let's see. So we have like 10 enemies all spawned at the same time. Oh, okay, and there's one of the miners. So I should see another one pop up here pretty soon. Unless they're all popping up in the same location. I guess that technically could happen. Oh, yep, there's another one. Now, it doesn't currently have any hitbox, though, so I can't hit it. My guess is they're spawning on top of each other. Oh, there's another one. Okay, perfect. Yeah, and these are definitely much bigger. Although the player can go right through them, which isn't great. Is the player set? I think I need +8 on that. What is 16? What is layer 16? Is that 5? Oh, non-blocking geometry. Yeah. Okay, yeah, the player should not be running into them. Also, that I didn't resize the collision object, so it's probably way undersized for how scaled these things are. No, I just went right through it again. Interesting. Oh, nope, I did hit it. Okay, it's just really, really undersized. A lot more than I thought it would be. Okay, we'll make that. Oh yeah, that's tiny. Okay, so one other thing too. This guy needs to come down. Yeah, that seems about right, but I'm gonna make that like a 4 anyways. There we go. Okay. Now, well, no, actually, this needs to be a little bit smaller. It needs to be like 2.5, and then I need a hurt box around it. Which just does damage if a hitbox passes into it. So we'll do a collision shape, and we will set that to a sphere. Okay, and for this, we'll do a radius of 3. We need it to be larger than the collision area, so that you can actually touch it. Yep, okay, that should be fine. And for the hurt box, we need a damage generator, and we're just going to do a static one. Layer 2 is enemy damage, and we're going to have it deal like 20 damage. I don't know. I'm going to have to test this. This is just the you ran into it. And then I'm going to set its damage parent to the health component, and that will just allow it to hurt itself if something runs into it. And we're going to give it a lethal damage mutator, which will just the way this works in Proto Jam is it will pass the same damage it does to you to its parent, but you can supply an optional mutator, and the lethal damage mutator is just something I wrote that will make the damage lethal no matter how little it was. So basically, if the player runs into one of these, they'll just blow up. And then I need to add a hitbox as well, which is the same setup. You add a damage child or damage box, then you add a collision box to that. We're gonna do another sphere for that, and this will be even larger. We'll do like 4. Yeah, and that way it's easier for the player to hit them. I might even go larger than that. Same story, we set the damage parent to the parent, and there's also a mutator here, which you could use to do like defense or whatever else you wanted to do, but for that it should be fine. Okay, so now let's test it and see. I should be able to shoot them now. Oh gee, okay, one spawned right on top of me. That wasn't great. I might want to do a check to see with the spawners to see if the player is currently in the spawner. That would be relatively easy to do. Okay, so let's see. I think these only have 1 health. How much health did I give these? Oh, they have 5. Let's go for more than that. Maybe 15. I don't want to do a ton, but I do want them to be somewhat... I do want them to actually take away from your time. If you can just quickly shoot one and then not think about it, they're not really going to serve their purpose, because the whole point is to distract you from hitting the enemies that are what you actually have to do to win. Yeah, those are still too easy. These need to be a lot beefier than that. I don't know, maybe 30. Okay, let's see where... There they are. Something's not right. These shots only deal 1 damage, and I did not shoot 30. Oh, I know what I... Oops. I set the max health, not the initial health. Alright. I really debate whether or not there's even a benefit to doing that, because I can't think of a situation where I would spawn something in it less than max health. Okay, let's try that at 15 again. No, not 150, 115. Okay. Okay, that feels better. A little bit of damage. I think that... I might even go for 20. Yeah, that still feels a little light. These things are pretty big. They should be tanky. Let's try 30-30. See how we like that. Okay. Alright, that was a good run on that one. Yeah, okay, that felt pretty decent. That feels pretty good. It's maybe a little too much. I might go for like 25 or 20. Yeah, okay, that one felt like too long. Let's bring it down to 20 and see how that feels. It's going to depend a lot once they're actually moving too, but at least I figure for the most part, players are probably not going to catch them while they're moving. Yeah, that feels a little better. It might actually be a legitimate strategy, just crash into them. I'm gonna have to definitely make the other enemies make up for that, because otherwise it might legitimately be easier for players to just smash into the things instead. Okay. Yeah, this is making sense now. They're definitely Honestly, even with the 5-second spawn delay, they are kind of serving their purpose of distracting you from hitting the main targets. I'd say this is working pretty well. Okay, so now the director should be fully implemented. Let me run a test here. So in the test mission, we're going to set the max active miners to 1. And we're going to lower, well, we'll leave the active fighters at 10. But I think it's time to hook in the damage of the fighters. Okay, so I only see 1 miner. That's good. Okay. Yep, okay, looks like only one of them spawned, so that is working. Okay, perfect. All right, so then the drones and the miners both need a signal to be emitted whenever they have taken damage. Somehow I hit caps lock. Okay, or not damage, whenever they're killed. So we'll do that. And then the easiest way to do that is to grab a reference to the death component. And we'll just bring that in, and then in the death component, we will do death component dot, what is it? Oh no, actually it's the health component I want, not the death component. Now I am going to change the death component to actually spawn an explosion, and play a sound, but for the moment this is all we're going to do. Okay, so killed. I think this emits a signal or sends some data. Yeah, it sends out damage. I don't care about that. So we're just going to do connect. And we're going to just emit the killed signal from here. Kill.emit. And we are going to connect, or we're going to call .unbind, which is how you remove arguments you don't want. And then we're going to do connect one shot, because there shouldn't be able to get killed more than once. All right, so we're going to copy that, and then we're going to do the same thing over here on the miner. We're going to copy the health component, and then we'll make the signal. Perfect. Okay, and that's all it takes to hook that up. So then in the director, we're going to come over here, and we are going to actually add a callback. So we'll do func on fighter killed, and then we're going to do another one for on miner killed. Okay, so now what we'll do here is we'll say I need to get the number of available fighters. So we'll do func get remaining fighters. Okay, so that will be let's see, so we have destroyed fighters plus active fighters minus that, so it would be return mission dot fighters minus destroyed fighters minus active fighters. So active includes engaged. Okay, and then we'll say if get remaining fighters is greater than 0, then spawn a fighter. Else we need to win the game. All right, so we'll need a signal for that. That should be pretty easy. We can just do signal mission complete. And we will just do that. And then I want to emit how many miners and fighters were destroyed. So we'll do fighters int miners int and we'll call that destroyed. Destroyed. Destroyed fighters, destroyed miners. Okay, perfect. And we'll pass in destroyed fighters and destroyed miners. I might pass in time as well, but I don't think I'm actually going to make this a timed mission. Then the other thing I want to do is to stop the spawning. So I think we're going to do an actual function for this. So we'll do complete mission. Or you know what? I'm going to say mission over instead of mission complete. Because it's possible that the asteroid could also get fully mined. So we'll do finish mission, and we'll put that in here. And then in there, we will also do the miner spawn timer dot stop. And I'm going to need some way of making sure that if the player shoots something, it doesn't trigger this again. So I'm going to need some state as well. So var, we'll say finished, bool equals false. Okay. And we'll say if not finished and then same thing here, not finished and same thing here, if not finished. All right. And that's mission over, not mission complete. And then in here, we'll do the same thing, if not finished. And we'll put the same thing here, but we'll just leave that as pass for now. Okay. So if the remaining fighters is 0 or less, then we finish the mission. Otherwise, we spawn a fighter. And then for the miners, oh, I also need to decrement them. That's right. So I need to do destroyed fighters plus equals 1. Plus equals 1. And then down here, we'll just do destroyed miners plus equals 1. Okay. Oh, and also active fighters. Active fighters minus equals 1. And actually, I'm going to do a clamp on that. Clamp I miners minus 1 0 or max actually. There we go. That way we cannot go into the zeros. I don't know how I'm going to handle engaged and unengaged fighters. I'm probably going to have to test if the fighter was engaged or not when it was destroyed, or if it changes state. At this point, I don't even know if I'm going to give the fighters much state, but we'll see. I may drop that whole idea and just have them seek out the player as soon as they spawn. At this rate, that's probably the easiest thing to do. Okay, so active fighters. Right, yep, that should be fine. Okay. So then the only thing I'm not using is engaged fighters. So let's take a look at this test mission. So this has total number of fighters is, we're going to do 30. We're going to do the max active is 5 just to test. And then we're going to do 2 max active miners. And we're going to put a 15-second delay on it so that I can actually see what they're doing. So we're going to test and make sure that I don't see more than 2 miners at a time. And we're going to make sure that I only see, what, 5 fighters at once? I see, yeah, I think that was 5. Okay, so there's 1 miner there. Now they might spawn on top of each other. It's not going to be a problem, I don't think, in the full, once I get them moving. But for now, they probably will. Oh, yep, okay, I see 2. Let's wait a second, make sure that we don't see a 3rd one pop up anywhere. And I'll try shooting them as well, just to verify that they're not stacked. Alright, looks to me like there are only 2. Actually, it might be easier to just ram into them. Alright, one's dead. That one did take a little longer to kill. It's possible they were stacked. Okay. Let me give the miners some basic physics here. We're just going to move them forwards. So we're going to give them a speed. I don't know. We'll make them like 15. And we're going to say physics process. Physics process, we're going to say velocity equals, I don't know, vector or global position dot direction to vector 3.0. So they move towards the center, and then we're going to multiply that by speed. And then move and slide. Okay. That should be fine. We don't need the delta. I'm probably going to copy the same code to make them align themselves, but... Alright, so let's see if they move towards the center of the map when they spawn. I'm tempted to implement a wave size on these enemies. Oh, yep, there's already one there. Well, that was fast. I was hoping to see this. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay, those move a lot faster than I intended them to. All right, let's try 5 as the speed. That is way faster than I intended. Oh, also, let me boost their spawn rate. So we'll go to 5. And this way, since they're moving, I can see if they do stack on top of each other. I'm pretty sure they're not, but just to be safe. I'm thinking too, I might actually give the fighters a spawn timer like the miners have. Because it occurs to me part of the problem is they're going to just spawn instantly. And you're not even going to really notice that you killed one. Okay, so they're both hanging out there in the center. And there are only 2. I might honestly make them even slower than that. With the size of the map, I think the map size is good. I don't really want to make it a lot bigger than it is. Okay, I don't see any more of them spawning, so I think I did something wrong. Yeah, okay, something's wrong. What did I break? What in here is broken? Destroyed miners plus equals 1. Oh, I forgot to decrement them. Active miners, and we'll just grab the same code here. Yeah, I think the fighters need a spawn delay because I do want to keep quite a few of them around you at a time, because the problem is once it gets down to 1 fighter, it's kind of hard to find them. Okay, there they are. And they are moving relatively slow, but I think I want them to move slower than that even. Okay, well that was unintentional. The enemies can shove them. Okay, I think I'm going to give them a custom collision layer, because that's not what I wanted to happen. Okay, so let me rename these. 3D physics. Okay, I'm going to say drone fighter enemies. And then we're going to say minor enemies. Okay, so layer 6 is... Ow, that's layer 6. Right, so we're going to reset that on the drone. So they collide with nothing. And then what is layer 6? Is value 32. All right. So they collide with themselves. And then on the player, I need to add 32 onto that. Okay, cool. So that way the player can't just phase through the enemy, which I mean isn't really that big of a deal because the enemy's going to explode anyways, but it'll just make sure that the that you can't clip the camera through them is really all I'm trying to prevent here, because that would be really annoying. Okay, they're still bumping into each other. That's good. I could even give them an additional collision box. I could make their collision box bigger, but not have the player actually collide with it. Oh, yep, and there we go. The enemies went right through them. That's what I intended. All right. So then theoretically, this should be working. I just need to hook up the director to the game so that you can actually win when you shoot all the enemies, and I think we'll be good. All right, so the director, we are emitting that signal, right? Yep. Okay, so we've got mission over, which can technically get emitted even if you lose. So I need a way to indicate if you won. So we'll just do 1 as a Boolean. And then down here, we'll just hard code that to true for the moment. Okay, and then in the game class, we are going to come over there and we are going to subscribe to that. So we're going to do director.missionover.connect. We'll do on mission over, and we'll do connect one shot. Just to make sure that somehow if I accidentally make a coding mistake, I can't trigger the mission to be over twice in a row. And we'll go ahead and make this function. And we'll just go back into the director real quick and copy these variable names, because I'm going to use these values for scoring. Okay. So now if mission... Yeah, I need like a post-game summary, but at least for the moment, we're going to do mission over, and we're just going to emit it. Just for testing's sake. And we'll do generate mission stats. Okay, and we'll just leave that be for now. I will need to check that as well, but I think this is actually wired up in the application. Let me double check. Yep, so that'll switch to the mission results screen, which doesn't currently do anything. So that's fine. So we'll just code in here. We'll have it swap back to the main menu. Oh, where did I? Oh, there it is. Okay. And then let's make the mission a little easier so I can actually test this. So if I get bounced back to the menu after I shoot an enemy, then I know it worked. So we'll set it to 5 fighters and a max of 5 at a time. So let's see. That's 2. Come here, you. All right, I think this is the last one. Kind of lost count. Oh, maybe it wasn't. Uh-oh. I don't see any more. I think I screwed something up. Yep. I don't see any more. I think that was all of them. Oh, we got some debug messages. What happened? Okay, yeah, none of that matters. Okay. Interesting. I was expecting to actually win there. Let's change the max number of fighters to 1. so that that's a little quicker. And let's take a quick look at the director code before I add some breakpoints and check that. Okay, so if not finished, we're setting finished to false. Okay. If not finished and the remaining fighters is greater than 0, then we spawn one. So if remaining fighters is 0, we should be fine. So destroyed fighters should be... Okay, so let's set the breakpoint in here. We're going to put it right there. All right, let's try this again. All right. Wait, what? Oh, something is wrong. The total number of fighters is set to 1, and it just spawned way more than that. Okay. Okay, I think something's very wrong here. If active fighters is greater than... Oh, yeah, okay, that needs to be remaining fighters. Remaining fighters is greater than... is less than or equal to 0. Oh, and actually, yeah, this is completely wrong. If finished, or... Yeah, okay, I just coded that totally backwards. Yeah, alright. So if finished, or... active miners is greater than or equal to the max miners. Yeah, that one's right. Alright. Let's try that again. I was going to say, there should only be one fighter in the mission. Okay, there he is. Come here. Yeah, okay. That didn't even hit the breakpoint. That's interesting. That's very interesting. So I didn't even... Oh, you know what? I'm dumb. I didn't even connect these signals. They're not doing anything. Yeah, that'll do it. It would help if you actually call the code you finished writing. Okay. Alright. So when I spawn the fighter, I need to do fighter.killed. Or actually, because this is a node, I have to do connect. Well, if fighter.has signal, because I have to use duck typing here, then we're going to do fighter.connect yep, okay, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do connect one shot. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing in here for the miners. Except we're going to call miner killed. All right, that's interesting. I could have sworn I watched them respawn. I guess I was just exiting too soon and didn't notice. Okay, so first things first, let's test the miners before I test that fighter. It just ran into the sun. Okay. All right, so let's step over and see what happens. Oh, yeah, okay, it went to finish mission. I think it's working this time. So I can undo that breakpoint. And let's add a couple more enemies in. We'll set it to 5. We'll set the size to 5. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to set this to 10. And we'll set the max that can be in-game at 5 at a time. And we'll see what we get. All right. So they should keep spawning in up to 10 now. Now I am going to need some kind of signal from the director that specifies when an enemy is killed so that I can hook it into the player HUD so they know how many they have left. Come here, you. All right. Yeah. Okay, well that wasn't right. There were still quite a few still there. That's not right. Oh, and there were a lot of errors. What happened? Function blocked during in-out signal. Huh. Wait, what? Why is that highlighting monitorable? Add damage box. Function blocked during in-out signal. Use deferred monitorable. Oh, that's getting called from a fit. Wait, what? Oh, that's a new one. I have never seen that error before. Function blocked during in-out signal. So it got called from spawn, which got called from spawn fighter, which got called from on fighter killed. Ah, okay. Which got called probably from... Huh. On area. So, yeah, okay. So it's trying to spawn it during the... Function block during in-out signal. Use set deferred. Okay, well, I'm not going to set it deferred there. I think one of these signals needs to be deferred. I'm not 100% certain where this is getting called from, that you're not allowed to call set monitorable. There's a doc. Yeah, the doc doesn't say anything. Okay. So in the director then, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the kill signals deferred. Which is another useful thing you can do when you're connecting to a signal. You can also do connect deferred so that you get called in idle time. I'm a little confused why it restarted though. I'm going to track how many of these I shoot. I'm going to try and stay away from the sun. Okay, that's one. I was gonna say, where are the rest of them? That's two. I still wish they wouldn't clump up like that. Three. Four. What do you want to bet it's when I shoot five that it ends the level? Nope. Five. Six. What? Why is it six? Why would that be what ends the level? That is not the limit. Okay, well, there's definitely something wrong with the director because max active is 5 and the total number of fighters that are supposed to be spawned are 10. Oh, I think I know what's wrong. So remaining fighters is how many can be spawned, not necessarily how many are actually in the level. Okay, so if remaining fighters is greater than 0, elif destroyed fighters is greater than or equal to mission dot fighters. Okay, so that way it actually checks to make sure, because it was just, it ran out of fighters to spawn. That's what happened. Okay, so this should work a little bit better now. I think I do need to add a state to these guys so that they don't immediately swarm you as soon as they spawn, though. They're kind of aggressive at the moment. Even if I give them a chance to miss you once I implement them shooting, it's going to be kind of aggressive with how fast they snap on. The whole point is that you're supposed to be finding and destroying these things. So if they just immediately stick to you, it doesn't, defeats the whole purpose of even moving around. Okay, where'd they go? Ah, there they are. Alright, so I should not see the game end until they're actually all destroyed this time. Alright. I really need to get the kill count hooked into the HUD. I still need to build the HUD too. I think what I want to do is like a fighter jet heads-up display. A little flip-up. I don't even know what you'd call that thing that you see in fighter jets. I found out in the last Godot Wild Jam that stencil buffers do work in web builds. So I think I'm going to do a holographic display that moves around whenever the ship turns. Yeah, it's a combination of mostly my aim, and partially I think the shot leading is not great. Oh, dang it, I ran out of ammo. That is embarrassing. Whoever said game developers are good at their own games. Yeah, the shot leading is a little unintuitive right now. It's hard to judge how far away they are, is what I'm finding. It also doesn't help that they are, I don't know how well it comes across on stream. They are aggressively, whenever you lock onto them, the way their AI is coded, they're trying to keep a certain angle away from you. So when you lock onto them, they immediately start turning away from you, which makes it very difficult to actually hold a lock. And there's no aim assist or anything. So I think what I'm probably going to have to do is either turn down how squirrely they are or add in some aim assist, because I think this is going to be fairly difficult for people to hit them. Okay, there we go. Got a few of them. I do like the patterns they make when they orbit around you, though. That turned out really well. Although I still need to fix why the trail... Sometimes they turn at a weird angle and it makes the trail almost go through them. Oh, there they are. I think you're the last one. Come here. Oh, no, apparently not. Ah, yeah, okay, two more. Yeah, I need to fix this issue too, because sometimes you can lose them. That's kind of annoying, just circling around trying to find the thing again. Oh. There you are. Ow. Dang it, I lost it again. The trail helps a little bit with that, but they are definitely... Ah, okay, there we go. It worked that time, so it actually ended. Alright, so there's effectively a game loop now. I just need to make it so that the shooting star has health, and that the miners actually drain the health, and then hook that into the director so that it knows when the star is depleted. And then I think we should be good. Okay, so let's add a health component to this. And I don't know, we'll give it... I'm going to give this thing a lot of health, because these things are going to be constantly draining it. So we'll do... I don't know. It makes sense. A 500. We're just going to use the ratio of it for scoring. And then that is going to need a hitbox. Yeah, one of the things I thought about doing was like a 3D map. Like a little sphere that would be sitting in front of you with you in the center and little red dots around it. The other thing I thought about is what you're saying, like the little markers that will show up and stick to the edge of the screen at whatever direction the enemy is. I'm not 100% certain how to implement that right now, though. So what I'm trying to avoid doing is getting too sidetracked on that, because you can technically play the game, but it's not... There's no, like, finished game loop yet. So you can technically still beat it, even if you can't find the enemies very easily. So I want to wrap up the game loop before I go back and add in the quality of life stuff that'll make it more enjoyable to play. But yeah, that definitely is something I'm thinking about. The other thing I thought about doing is having the enemies teleport. So if they stay out of view, there's a node in Godot. I forget what it's called. I think it's visibility or something. But there's a special node that can detect if it's on camera. And what I was thinking about doing is that if an enemy is off camera for too long, teleporting it somewhere else so that you can see it. Like teleporting it off to the right in front of the player, just off screen, so that it's likely to come back into frame. So just doing some movie magic like that, so that they're a little more fair. Okay, so we're gonna give this thing a shape. I need to turn that off. This is blinding me. Let's see, how big did I make this? Oh, there we go. So we're gonna have this hit area just be for the miners. So what the miner ships are gonna do is move towards the sun, or the star, or shooting star, and once they get close enough to it, they're just gonna constantly start attacking it. But they'll be the only things that can damage it. Yeah, I think 8.5 is probably fine. And then let's see, for the hitbox, we'll assign the health as the parent. Okay, and then on the type mask, we're going to do 4. So what this specifies is that only damage from this layer can hurt this thing, so that way the player can't accidentally shoot their own star and destroy it. And then I'm not using type damage, so I'm just going to leave that at 1. So we set that to 4. We have no iframes. That's good. Okay. All right. So then what I need to do on the drones is give them a way to attack the star. And the star is also going to need to be part of a group. So we're going to go make a group. I think I'm going to do that programmatically, though. So we're going to give this thing a script. And in the ready function, we are going to add to group, and we're going to give it, I think you can have spaces in group names. Okay, and I'm just going to export that just in case I need to change it. So we'll do, well, yeah, we'll just leave that be. And that way the enemies can find it. And then for the miner drone, we'll come over here and we'll give it a target group. All right. And they're going to need to find their target. So I'm just going to steal the code I wrote for the drones. And let's see where, yeah, I just need that. All right, cool. Okay, so then what they're going to do in here is we're going to say, let's get target if null does not equal, or if null equals target. And we're just going to return. No point doing anything. Otherwise, well, actually, there's no death component, so they shouldn't ever go to null, but just to be safe. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is get the target position so they actually move towards the sun. All right, and then I'm going to need to add some slowdown logic if they get close enough, so we'll just add a note about that. But I also want to add the attacking logic. So they're going to need some kind of weapon pointing at the sun that they can shoot at it with. And I'm planning on using like a little mining laser. So let's see, I'm going to need to make a custom weapon for them. So we'll go into the weapons folder. We're going to create a new script and we'll call this mining laser. And we'll extend abstract weapon. Trying to get a game working in Godot. But I never dev anything. I work much with AI. What's your... Oh, about using like generative AI for in game development? I think it can be a useful tool to help learn. I will caution that generative AI generally has a problem with being confidently incorrect. And sometimes the things it'll recommend to you are not necessarily going to be the best way of doing something either. Personally, and this comes from someone who's done indie development for a while, I try to avoid it because I try to learn the APIs myself. Like I do a lot of my coding without IDEs and other things like that would help me, because it helps you build up that knowledge. But in terms of getting into it, I think here's what I would say. Game development is a broad thing. There are all kinds of different roles you can take within it. You can be programming, and even then there's many different sub roles in programming, like a tools programmer, an engine programmer, a gameplay programmer. Then there's the other side, which is leaning more into creative, which is your art, your modeling, your texturing, your lighting, your design. I would say that you kind of have to ask yourself where you are on that spectrum, because the answer is going to depend a little bit there. If you are on the designer side, using generative AI to help you code, I would say is a little less of a problem, because you're not going to handicap yourself. If you just want to make a game and the code is what's holding you back, then using generative AI to help you learn, I think, is not a bad idea. If you're on the other side though, in that you want to get into doing tools programming, engine programming, something like that, I would really recommend avoiding it, because for two reasons. One, there's the whole ethics issue of it's been trained on other people's code and the environmental impact and everything. But there's the other issue too, that it's going to hold you back, I think. And there's also a big issue of what happens when people become over dependent on the AI tools. Are the makers of these AI tools going to raise the prices and make it impossible for people to use them anymore unless they shell out a ton of money? There's things like that you need to be aware of. So it really is going to depend. I would say the short-term answer is, are you doing this game for a jam? Does the jam allow AI? That's your answer. So like Godot Wild Jam is strictly no AI. So I'm not going to do anything AI. Not that I do AI anyways. If you're doing it for yourself, you're just going to have to decide where you fit on that spectrum. Because at the end of the day, you want to try and remove roadblocks to you getting a game done, but you need to be careful about misuse of it. I would just say that. It's a very touchy thing in game development. Some people are at the absolutely never end of the spectrum for any reason whatsoever, and that if you made a game and you used it for even asking, grok or something, you're going to get massacred. At the other end of the spectrum, there's people that are like, well, if you use it for prototype assets, that's okay, but not in the game. Honestly, I don't use it. Like, for me personally, I don't like it. I don't use it. I don't necessarily care as much as other people do, as long as they're using it reasonably ethically. But I would say that if you are looking to get into programming specifically, I would recommend avoiding anything that's going to handicap you, is just my general guidance. If you're getting into design and your end goal is to be on a team with a dedicated programmer, then using generative AI to help supplement your programming so that you have something to design with is not as bad. It's not, I don't think, going to hurt you as bad in the long run. Unfortunately, it's a very complicated answer. It's probably more complicated than you were looking for, but hopefully that helps at least somewhat. Okay, so we're going to grab the mining laser code in here, and we're going to start implementing that. So can shoot is always going to be true, so we're just going to do true. And all this mining laser is going to do is just going to shoot some invisible projectile. Yeah, no problem. We're just going to shoot some invisible projectile, and we're just going to return 0 ammo. There's no point for the mining laser to have ammo. Well, I'm just going to return 100 for the heck of it. Okay, so then shoot's going to be a little interesting. So basically what I want to have happen is there's going to be some sort of visual indicator that you're shooting at the star. but I don't think that's going to be the actual projectile being shot. I think I'm just going to do like a tube or something as the visual representation. So this is just going to fire some kind of invisible projectile at the shooting star to decrease its health. So if where did I code that projectile? What did I do with that? Oh, there it is. Okay, so it looks like the blaster bolt is just an animatable body and a hurt box. Okay, I think I can just code that as a script. There's not really a good reason to give this. We're just going to basically copy the same code as the blaster bolt. And we're just going to probably just inline that, honestly. Okay, so we will do class name mining bolt or mining beam, or you know what, we'll just do mining laser projectile. Extends animatable body 3D. Is that even close to right? Yeah, it must be. Okay, cool. All right. And actually, I'm going to make this a private class since there's really no reason for anything else to use it. Oops. Okay. Oh, right. Yeah, that should be class, not class name. All right. So we've got speed, initial velocity. I don't think I need initial velocity here because these are going to be invisible projectiles. So there's really no reason to deal with any of that. Okay, so collision layer is set to 4. What is 4? Let me find where's here we are. There's 4. Oh, that's projectiles. Okay. So yeah, I guess I should do that. Should also. That's the one downside of the collision layer system in Godot is that when you set these programmatically, you can't tell what layer they are. It's really annoying. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing there. Projectiles. Okay, velocity. We're going to get rid of initial velocity. Why is velocity underscored? What is that? Oh, I forgot to copy that apparently. Okay. So then we'll just chuck that in there. All right. So we've got our velocity. And then in the physics process, we're just moving it, which is fine. Okay. So then I need to actually go in and add the body. Yeah. Okay. So let's add in a few things here. So we're going to need a health component so that it can automatically destroy itself. A death component. Well, the death component so it can destroy itself. The health component so that it can take damage when it hits something. So we'll do health component equals health component dot new. And I think health component is already initialized to do 0 to 1 health, I think. Yeah, okay. So we should be good there. So we'll do add child. Realizing this probably would have been quicker to just do this as a scene than in code, but yeah, whatever. I already started it this way. I'm not going to change it now. Okay, so then we're going to do a death component. No, actually, no, I changed my mind. We're just going to do this as a scene because this is going to get a little tedious to do it that way. Okay. And I might change my mind about wanting to actually have this be visible. So we'll do mining laser projectile. And we'll just do a new scene. Animatable body 3D. We'll call that mining laser, not laster. Projectile. All right. And we'll save that under scenes, projectiles. We'll go ahead and add a script to that. and we'll give it the class name. I can ditch all of that. I guess theoretically I could have just used the regular blaster weapon and just allowed it to take custom projectile types. Oh well. Sometimes there's diminishing returns to reusability though, because if you decide that you want to make a drastic change to like how the player weapon works, but you made the weapon reusable with the enemies, sometimes you can create a little bit of a problem for yourself in game jams where you've made stuff too reusable and now it's hard to add in custom logic that you wanted, because it would completely change the whole architecture of it. Now I'm going to make these bolts fairly big because I don't want them to miss the star. I don't think that's very likely, but just in case. And for debugging purposes, we're going to give it a mesh instance with a sphere, so that I can actually see what it's doing when the enemy starts shooting. We'll get rid of this whenever it's... we'll make it green so it stands out. We'll get rid of this whenever we're done and we've made sure that everything's working the way it's supposed to. Alright, so we'll do our health component. We're going to add our death component. And we're going to need a hurt box. And we're going to need a hit box. Or no, not a hit box. We need a damage box. Then that needs a collision box. Or a collision shape. And normally, if this is a projectile that was meant to hit the player, I would make sure that it is... that the hurt box is smaller than the actual projectile, because there's a funny thing with players. They perceive fairness as being unfair, which is kind of funny. Bungie did I think it was a GDC talk a long time ago, where they made AI, I think it was in either Halo 1 or Halo 2, that was legitimately smart. It wasn't cheating, it was just legitimately good at strategizing. But the funny thing was, players unanimously thought the AI was cheating because it was better than them. So there's this funny problem where players will perceive things that are just done fairly as unfair. So a general rule in game design is that you want to balance the game in the player's favor. So you make enemy hitboxes bigger than the enemy so that it's harder for the player to miss them. You make the player's hitbox smaller than the player so it's harder for enemies to hit the player. And then you make projectile hitboxes smaller than the actual projectile. Things like that, so that the problem I think is that when players are playing, they're not noticing the little details. So they won't notice that they missed by a small fraction of an amount. Instead, they'll think they should have hit something when in reality it just zipped by a few centimeters. And you can't really blame them for that because there's too much information to take in. But since this is not intended to actually hurt the player, and it couldn't hurt the player even if I wanted it to, we're not going to worry about it. So this is going to deal, I don't know, 1 damage. We'll just balance the star health around it. Okay, and we set that on layer 4, which is not being used by anything else. So that isn't going to accidentally hit, or actually now that I think about it, let me double check. Can the player take damage from layer 4? No, okay. All right. Let's see, where is this mining projectile? All right. Is that hooked up? That is. The death component needs to be hooked up. All right. And the health component is good. I do need a mutator on this. We'll do a lethal damage mutator. So that way, whenever it deals damage, it kills the projectile. This is a fun... I started doing this in one of my first game jams last year. I started giving my projectiles health. It's a really convenient way to reuse components because I always have a death component that destroys the object when it runs out of health. So if I want a projectile to get destroyed when it hits something, it's really convenient to have its hurt box kill the health component so that then I can just use a death component to erase the projectile. And I don't have to do any scripting to make that work. So it should be all of the scripting I think I need for the projectile. But I need to go into the weapon now And I'm basically just going to copy the blaster weapon into the mining laser. We'll say mining laser weapon. Also going to rename that. Okay, and we will do projectile scene. That's going to be a different scene than the one I've got, so we'll go grab it. There we go, mining laser projectile. Okay. We are not going to have a number of rounds. We will need the fire rate. We will need projectile speed. We're not going to worry about velocity. Okay. All right, so can shoot is always going to return true. Get ammo, I'm just going to hard code it to return 1. Shoot should be fine. We're not going to worry about that. Yeah, okay, so all of this isn't needed because you're never going to run out of ammo. And we're just going to grab the projectile scene. And I don't need to set initial velocity. I can just call this mining laser projectile. Rotation, top level true, and speed. Okay, I think we're good there. So then all I need to do is add this to the miner and then have the miner start shooting as soon as it's within range. I also need to have the miner stop. Now, something I added to the player is this weapon carousel, which just keeps the weapons pointing at the reticule of the player, which is actually kind of an interesting thing. The player reticule is on a spring arm. So the actual reticule that you see is not a 2D control. It's literally in 3D space, but it's set to always render at a fixed size, so you don't notice that it's getting further and closer away from you. And it's on a spring arm pointing out in front of the player. And that solves the problem of if you're pointing at something close, the guns need to aim in to hit it. But if you're pointing at something far away, they need to aim out. So the weapon carousel will just automatically point the guns at wherever the reticule is pointing. And the reticule being on a spring arm will just get pushed if it runs into something. Which actually occurs to me, I might need to update that. Where is the... yeah. I need to add minor enemies to the things it can hit. So that's just a really... not necessarily the best way of doing that. Normally you'd use a ray cast, but for a game jam, it's a nice quick way of getting that done. Although, actually, I don't think I need a carousel for this. I think I can just literally add the weapon. So we'll just add the mining laser. And... actually, I just noticed the whole enemy's pointing backwards. You need to go that way. There we go. Okay, so then we're going to just put the mining laser out here in front. And that should be fine. And I'll grab that. And we're going to check how close we are to the target. So if the target global position... I'm going to do var target position vector 3 equals this global position. If target position, we'll do global position dot distance to target position dot... oh yeah, I guess... wait, is distance 2 even a... or I just make that up? Oh no, that is an actual thing. Okay, so if the distance is less than some export var, say mining range, float equals, I don't know, 15. If it's less than mining range, then we will do the mining laser weapon. We'll start shooting. Actually, we'll just make this a variable in mining range bool equals that. Then we'll do mining laser weapon dot shoot, and we'll just say if in range, and then I can do the same thing here. So if in mining range, then we are going to set the target position. We're going to overwrite it to our current position. And that way, once we hit range, we're going to try and hold where we're currently sitting. And I should probably be lerping the velocity. So let's do var new velocity vector 3. We'll just grab all of this. And I also need to use target position. Okay, and then I can just do velocity dot lerp. Do new velocity, and then we're going to do a weight variable. And you can't just use delta. If you use delta in a lerp, it will not be correct. It will not be frame rate agnostic. If the frame rate goes fast, then the lerp will slow down because the delta is very small. And if the frame rate gets slow, then the lerp will go very, very fast. Which sounds like what you want, but in practice it causes a lot of problems. So there's some articles online that talk about a frame rate dependent lerp or independent lerp. So my ProtoJam add-on has a implementation of that. So you give it what acceleration you want, and then you pass in your delta, and it returns a weight that it's safe to use. I need to make delta actually in use. There we go. Okay. So we're going to add an acceleration variable up here. We'll do 3.0, and we'll just pop that in. Don't want any magic numbers in the code. All right, so our mining drone should work now. Only one way to find out. I forget what I have the spawn time set to on these guys, but we should see them pop in. Yep, okay. Oh, I didn't code it to actually face where it's pointing, but... yeah, okay, that's problematic. Yeah, they definitely need to face the right way. But they are doing what they're supposed to do. They are shooting when they get in range. Although it looks like the other one got blocked and couldn't quite hit it. Yeah, that's a little bit of a problem. Okay. Well, making it point in the right direction is easy. I've already got that in here. We have a line to velocity in the regular drone. So we're just going to borrow that code and take a look at it. Okay. I'm not going to deal with up vector. That doesn't really matter. Okay, so we're going to do... We're just going to call it align. Alright, so look at target is global position. If velocity... Hey, where is velocity coming from? Just wait. Oh yeah, this is a character body. Okay. So if velocity is 0, then we just keep looking in our current direction. Else we look at our velocity. Okay. Oh, right. This thing needs this target to work because it's going to lerp it. Actually, I'm going to change that to forward instead of 0. Okay. And we'll do the same thing. We'll do an alignment acceleration. There's probably a way I could bring this out into a component, but for now I'm not going to worry about it. And I apparently had that set to 2 on them, so we'll do the same thing here. Okay. And then up vector is just going to be vector 3 dot up, so they're always facing the right way around. And that should be fine because they're always going to be moving. Oh, that's not true because, well, you know, we'll see if this works. If they back up at all, they might start shooting in the opposite direction. So I probably need... I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to change this. Their look at target is always going to be this. So we're going to give them a target if it exists. Okay. So let's see. Look at target. So if velocity... Okay, we're not going to use velocity. We're going to say if is... Oh. Yeah, that's not happy because that is instance valid. That way I don't have to worry about dealing with null. We'll just do... Let's see. Look at target. Okay, so if... Oh, no, wait, no, this is backwards. So we want to do that. Otherwise, it just equals to that. And then this we're just to initialize to 0. Okay, and we'll just set that equal to the target's global position. Okay. And that way it should always face the target, which is going to be the shooting star, unless the shooting star is gone for some reason. And then it's just going to keep looking in whatever direction it already was. Okay, so then up here, I need to call a line. And we'll just do it there. And we'll just pass the target in. And the delta. And then we'll add that check there, because the rest of this isn't going to work if the target is null. Okay, so now they should always face the star. Just boost over here, turn around, see if we can spot one of them moving. Oh, there we go. It's actually facing it. And then it should start... Ah, there we go. I forgot to turn its effects back on. Okay, I think I want them a little further back, but that's looking a lot better now. Perfect. So, all right, first things first, let's actually turn the effects of the star back on. Let's back the drones up, because they are way too close at the moment. Let's give them like, I don't know, maybe even 25. Let's see how that looks. Because they're so close that they were going to be in the corona of the star. All right, there. That looks much better when it actually has the effects going. It does occur to me, I'm going to have to be pretty careful with where I place the spawn points, because they're not doing any fancy logic to maneuver to the star. So if there's anything between the spawn point and the star, they're just going to run into it. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Then you can shoot them, and that another one should spawn in a moment. Yep, okay, there's another one. Ooh, that was close, almost hit it. Okay, yeah, this is going pretty good. Yeah, all right. It's starting to come together now. So the whole idea is that you have to shoot down the enemy fighters, which need to also shoot the player. But while you're doing that, these mining ships are going to be slowly mining away the star. So you have to balance your time between... Oh, what the heck? How are they missing it? Uh-oh. Alright, well, I'm glad I kept playing, because that's a problem. How are the projectiles going through it? That's interesting. They shouldn't be. Does the star have a death component? I wonder if... No, it doesn't. Okay, so it should still be there. Okay, interesting. Let's see if we can reproduce that. I'm going to turn the star's effects back off. In fact, I'm going to turn the whole core of the star off, and I'm going to turn collision shapes on in the debug menu. And we're going to see if we can see what was happening there. I'm going to leave the miners alone. We'll see if they... I wonder if it only happens when one of them backs up against the other one. Okay, so that's correct. Yeah, all right. I can see them hitting the star. Okay, so these two aren't going to reproduce the issue, so we'll get rid of them. Okay. Yeah, that one's not causing it either. All right. All right, these aren't causing it. Might try removing the other spawn points so that there's only one. Oh, okay, now they're doing it again. Interesting. That's really interesting. I wonder why that's happening. It's like the collision box got disabled or something. Huh. I would understand if the star had a death component, that maybe somehow the visuals were still there, but the hitboxes weren't. Oh, actually, I think I know what's happening. The star ran out of health. When it runs out of health, it stops reporting that any damage was dealt to it, and I think the projectiles won't themselves take damage unless they deal damage. Yeah, okay. So the star just ran out of health. Okay. How am I going to work my way around that? Because I don't want the projectiles to just go through it once it runs out. I guess I could... You know what? Actually, let me try adding a death component. Maybe if I just destroy it, they'll stop shooting and it won't be an issue anymore. Well, I guess it's not that big of a problem. Yeah. Well, I'm still gonna add the death component anyway. Well, no, actually, I don't want to do the death component. So the lasers aren't actually supposed to be visible anyways. So I don't need to really worry about that. What I do need to worry about is that they're gonna keep shooting projectiles and potentially lag the game. So the gun needs to have a limit on how many projectiles can be spawned. And I need to do that with the player weapon as well. So I may as well just fix that issue now. So let's see, the blaster weapon, whenever I spawn a projectile, I'm going to add another variable for export var max projectiles int. I don't know, we'll set it to like 50. I didn't really notice lag until I had spawned hundreds of them, so it's not a problem. And then we're going to have an array of the projectiles. So we're going to keep track of everyone we spawn in an array. And when we need to spawn a new one, we'll just delete the oldest one in the array. And we'll just store these as node 3D. It doesn't matter. Okay. All right, so we'll do max projectiles. So down here, we will say if max projectiles is, well, if projectiles.size is greater than or equal to max projectiles, then we will do projectiles.pop front, which I think is the first one, right? Yep. Okay, so oldest projectile node equals that. Actually, I'm just going to change this to node instead of node 3D. We'll keep it generic. And before we do that, we're going to go ahead and add it. So we'll do projectiles dot push back projectile. Okay, so we grab the oldest projectile, then we call Q free. And I believe pop removes it from the array, right? Yep, removes it. So we should be good there. So we just Q free it. I think that's all we need to do. Yeah, I think that should actually take care of it. If it's greater than or equal, Yep, okay. So we will just do the same thing. And actually, one thing I can do to test this, I can set max projectiles to like 2 on the player weapon and see what happens. Yeah, okay. So they're not going very far. Yeah, okay, perfect. All right, so we'll change that back to 50, and we'll see how that looks, just to make sure that that's reasonable for the player weapon. Yeah, okay, so you can see the old ones disappearing in the distance. Nice. All right, perfect. I'm probably still going to give the projectiles some sort of... Usually what I do is with projectiles, I either give them a max distance traveled, where they'll automatically destroy themselves after they've traveled, say, 300 meters, or I'll give them a timer. Effectively the same thing either way. I think the timer has a little bit more overhead than the distance traveled, though. And the distance traveled, the one big difference is if you factor in your current velocity, you can run into a problem where if you count distance traveled and the player was moving really fast when they shot it, it might just instantly despawn. But it really depends on how you calculate it. Okay, so we're just going to copy the same code into the mining laser just to be safe. And we will do export var max projectiles. Wait, no, not here. Wrong code. Where's the mining laser? There we go. Okay. Export var max projectiles. Int. We're going to do a lot lower for these. We're going to do like 10 because it's really close. And actually, I'm going to lower the fire rate too on these things to like 500 maybe. Okay. And then we'll just go back into the blaster weapon and just borrow that code. I think with some of my other games, I created a projectile emitter class, and each weapon would have a reference to it. That's realistically what I probably should be doing here. But I might optimize that off stream. There's not really... I want to just get the main loop done, and I'll worry about removing some of the duplicate code later when I'm not streaming. Okay, there we are. There's the code. All right, so now that should work, so they can't just shoot infinitely. And now the next thing I want to do is just quickly implement the mining laser, like the visual for it. So I could put this on the weapon itself. How would I do this? I'm thinking I might use a spring arm, because I'm kind of thinking that I want the laser to hit the surface of the star and make like a plume of smoke wherever it hits it. So for that, you would probably want to use a spring arm from the enemy to the star. And then I could potentially scale a cylinder for the actual beam. Or I could use a particle emitter for the beam, although I'm kind of already using a lot of particles, so I don't want to overdo it. And there's CPU particles as well. As far as I'm aware, GPU particle emitters do not work in WebGL. I don't know if Godot's changed that, but that's what I've read in the past, is that you can't use a GPU particle emitter. You know, I could try it. Let me just add one real quick and see if I get an error. No, it doesn't throw an error. Okay, well, maybe those do work in WebGL now. I could have sworn I read that they don't work, though. Although it could be that maybe you can have them and they just don't do anything. Either way, I've been using CPU particle emitters for all the jams. But I don't think I want to use particles. I think I'm just going to use maybe a billboard sprite and just stretch it to reach the surface or just below the surface. I think for this, I'm going to do a custom scene. We'll just do a node 3D and we'll call this mining laser beam. And we'll add a spring arm. And what layer is the shooting star on? Okay, it's just on layer 1. Okay. So we will just do layer 1 for the collision mask on the spring arm. And these things are really annoying. Spring arms, There's actually an arrow coming out of the spring arm telling you which way it's pointing, but you can't see it when your spring arm is sitting at the origin. You can only just barely see it now. It is almost invisible. And it is actually facing the wrong way. So I want it to be facing -Z, because that's forwards. And then we can bring that back down. Okay. And the length, I don't know, we're going to set it to something really large, like 50. It doesn't matter. The shape doesn't really matter either. But I'm going to add a particle emitter at the end of it, so that wherever it goes, it will emit particles. And let's see, what are we going to do? Let's see, there's the mesh. We will do a plane mesh. We're going to scale it to 1. Yeah, 1 should be fine. We'll do face Z. And then on the standard materials, we'll come in here, we'll set it to alpha. We'll do probably add. I think I'm going to have it be unshaded. And then I need vertex color as albedo. That way you can actually set the color using a color ramp on the particle emitter. We'll set the texture to just this Kenny particle. We'll set billboard mode to particle billboard. And we'll set keep scale to true, so that I can also set the scale with a ramp. Okay, so I don't really want any gravity. Well, yeah, no, we'll keep the gravity, but the direction is going to be on +Z, and we're going to set the initial velocity. Wait, what? Why is that going? That's -Z. What? Huh. That's interesting. Is that a bug? Oh, no, it's because the spring arm is facing the other way. Okay. Because the spring arm itself is rotated. All right, so we've got some particles. These will be flinging out as it mines. And actually, we'll set the gravity. I don't know, the gravity should be fine. Okay, so then I'm going to reduce the spread to like 15 degrees. We're going to bring the velocity down to like 20. And then let's do a little bit of work on the color. We're going to do a color ramp. And we're going to start them as, I don't know, maybe green. And then we'll fade them off into clear. Actually, I think I'm going to start, well, let's bring that green closer. And I think I'm going to make the surface of it maybe yellow. That kind of looks cool. We'll see if I can actually see it in game. And then on the scale, we're going to do a scale ramp. So we start at 1, and then we'll scale down to 0. And actually, I'm going to change the initial size of this plane to be bigger. We're going to do like 3 and 3. And then... yeah, I was kind of thinking more like sparks, but this sort of works. At least something just to indicate that it's there. All right. And then let's see, what can I do here? I think I'm going to reduce the lifetime a little bit. We'll make it like 0.5. There we go. And I think I may also stretch out the particle. Now we'll do 3. Let's stretch it out on the X a little bit. Yeah, that looks kind of cool. I think that'll work. That looks sufficiently like something is getting mined. Let's maybe do a little bit of work. I want to do add or mix. I think I want to do add. I think I'm going to make the very tip of it white to make it look like it's blazing hot. Nah, that doesn't look as good. What I will probably do though is bring the green a little closer. Yeah, that looks okay. It kind of looks like Eco from Jak and Daxter. It's the same colors as green Eco, but whatever, we'll roll with it. Okay, so we'll just throw this into, I'm gonna make an effects. No, we'll just call it what it is. We'll just do new folder, mining laser beam. Okay, now the other thing I wanted was an actual beam that goes to it, which is going to be interesting because spring arms don't move, they move their children. So I could either put a node on the spring arm. Let me look at the documentation for these. All right, we'll just make a class for this real quick, and we'll do mining laser beam. But I think spring arm. Okay, we can get the hit length, so I can probably draw something doing that. Okay, we'll just do that then. So we'll access that as a unique name, and in physics process, we'll do actually, well, I probably do need to use physics process because it's a physics class. Okay, so we'll do the spring arm, and we will do, we're going to drop a mesh instance in here as well. And we're going to make that a tube, or I might do a ribbon trail or a tube mesh. That's weird. I didn't think tubes had a top and bottom. Huh. Okay, well, maybe not that. I might do then, maybe the ribbon trail is the right option here. Because what I want to do is I'm going to add an animation player. If you want to make something look like it's pulsing with energy, just really rapidly increase and decrease its scale on like a 0.1 second loop. That's what I'm doing with the sun, and it gives you a nice effect. So that's what I plan on doing here. So we've got that. The only problem is I'd have to change the size of the resource to make that one work. Okay, for now we'll just do the actual beam. We're not going to worry about the rest of this. And then on the miner, we're going to add this as a child. So we'll do, or I need to instantiate that. So do a mining laser beam, and we'll just make that a child of the weapon. And that way it's always pointing wherever the weapon is pointing. Yep, it should be fine wherever it is. There we go. And what I'll do is I'll just make sure that that is only enabled. Well, you know what? Actually, I'm going to make this part of the weapon class. It doesn't need to be part of this if I'm going to already make it a child of it anyways. So we'll just go in and grab the mining laser weapon, and we'll just make the mining laser scene. We'll just instantiate that. Okay, and then we will do var beam. Laser beam equals null. And in here we'll do beam equals instantiate, and then add child to beam. And same thing, we're just going to do it as internal. Okay. And then if shooting is true, we'll do this down here. If shooting, then we'll do beam dot visible. Why? Okay, where are you giving me grief here? Could not parse global class mining laser beam. Oh. Yeah, that would do it. Alright. So beam dot visible equals shooting. So that way the beam will only be active when it's actively shooting something. And then we're going to go ahead and make the projectiles invisible then. Wherever they are. Or did I lose them? Okay. So in here we'll just delete that mesh instance. And let's check it out. Oh, I've still got that enabled. Let's turn that off, and let's also make sure the shooting star is back on again. Well, I could feel the particle lag whenever it started. Trying to assign... Oh, okay, yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, so on both the player weapon and on that weapon, I actually need to do a check here and say, if this node is instance valid on this oldest projectile, because they can free themselves, so they might already be invalid before we attempt to free them. So we need to make sure we check for that. Okay, let's try that again. Hey, I can... Oh, dang it. Trying to assign invalid previously freed instance. Oh. Huh. Okay. Well, that complicates things. I didn't realize you can't even assign it if it's invalid. I thought it would just come back as null or something. Okay, so projectiles... dot front. Let's try that. Let's just move this up here. So if it's valid, then we assign it and then we free it. Else we just pop it. Yeah, this is exactly why this should be a component, because now this logic is starting to get a little nuanced. I think actually, yeah, let's make a component for this, because this is getting kind of complicated. So let's call it a component, or a node pool maybe. Yeah. Okay. So then we'll do a script, and we'll just call this node pool. And we'll just keep it as a node itself. I don't need any of the stuff using it to inherit transforms, so it's fine. So we'll do class name node pool. And what we'll do, we're going to do this a little more transparently than that. We're going to say on ready, we're going to subscribe to the child enter tree dot connect on child entered tree. So we're just going to have it transparently handle this. And we're going to add an export for export var max children int equals, I don't know, 10, whatever. We'll just give it some default. Now I think this signal contains the child. It does. I don't really need it though, so we'll just do that. And we're just going to say if, or we'll do var children array node equals get children and we will include internal, but actually we'll do var, we'll say if get child count, we will include internal, is greater than or equal to the max children, then we will grab the children and we will do children dot, okay, this is where I need to actually grab the code I just wrote. And we'll say children dot front. We'll do oldest child. Okay. So if the front is a valid child, then we'll grab it and do queue free. In fact, I can just combine this together. There's not really a good reason to hold a reference to it. Otherwise, we'll just pop it so that we can remove it from the list. And I don't need to do anything when it exits because it automatically is going to update its child count already. Perfect. Okay, so that should be fine. So that is the node pool. Okay, so then on the mining laser weapon, we're going to add a node pool as a child. And we're just going to ditch that and do node pool or projectile pool. I'm guessing it's mad because I haven't saved that yet. Yep. Okay, so then we're going to add that as a child. And we'll do it as internal again. Okay, so projectile pool, and then I'm also going to do projectile pool dot max children equals max projectiles. And then whenever I spawn a projectile, we're going to add them to the projectile pool. And then I don't need any of this logic to get rid of them. That should just be automatic. All right, so I should be able to do the same thing with the player weapon. Okay, and then we'll copy this code to initialize it. Yeah, it definitely should have a projectile emitter class. That would make this a lot more straightforward. I wouldn't have so much duplicate code between these two weapons. But there we go. All right, much simpler. Let me clear all the errors. All right, let's see if this works. So with the player, I'm just going to quickly double check to make sure that they are removing. Yep, okay, they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And just in time to watch the mining drones. Yeah, okay, there they go. All right, already I can tell the particles are not necessarily ideal. Actually, I kind of like the particle emitter. It makes it look like it's just vacuuming up parts of the star. The only problem is you can't really see it very well. I definitely need the laser beam. But yeah, that does work. I think that looks pretty good. Perfect. So then on the mining beam, I realize I've gotten a little sidetracked here working on the visuals, but we're far enough into the jam, and I'm confident enough with how the game is playing that I think it's fine to start shifting to some of the visuals. So I need a mesh that is going to automatically stretch to wherever the spring arm is. I think I'm just going to use a solid color for the laser and just stretch a mesh. But if you scale it, it's going to move its center point, which is going to be a little annoying. Okay. So let's just start with a mesh instance. And let's do... Can you disable the top and bottom? Yes, you can. Perfect. All right. And I think what I might do is actually invert the faces on this too. And then we're going to give it a material. We're going to make it unshaded. We'll give it alpha transparency. I don't know. Well, we won't do alpha. But we're going to make it unshaded. We'll make it like neon green. Yeah, it looks fine. Okay. And then we're going to make it a little bit smaller. Do like 0.25. 0.25. Maybe a little smaller, 0.2, 0.2. We'll do a height of 1 so that it scales easily. And we are going to rotate it that way. And I'll just have to update its position automatically. Okay. And also the radial segments is crazy. That is way too high. We'll do like 3 maybe. Or I guess it has to be a minimum of 4. Okay. Maybe we'll go up to like 6. Yeah. Okay. That way it actually looks. Yeah, that looks fine. Okay. So then we will call this a beam mesh. We'll grab a reference to it. And then in the physics process, we'll also grab the beam mesh. Make sure we hold control when we bring that over. And we're just going to grab the beam length float equals the spring arm dot get hit length. Does that ever return? I think that just returns the spring arm's max if it's not hitting anything, which should be fine. Then we're going to do scale dot y equals the length, I believe. I think it's the y I want to move because I had to rotate it. So let's just double check. Oh, wrong thing. Yep, it's the y. Okay. And then I want to move it on the z-axis forwards. So when I want to give it half of its dot position dot z equals beam length divided by 2. And I don't need the delta. There's no reason to use the delta for this. Oh, we don't need to lerp it or anything. Okay. So then that should work. And let's check out and see if the mining drones are working. Ah, dang it. I think I'm just going to miss it. Oh, that is not intentional. It just stabbed itself with its own mining laser. Okay. That's not right. What did I do wrong? Oh, right. That's supposed to be negative. Yeah, that would help. All right. Well, hopefully the mining drones don't mine themselves this time, and we'll see. All right. It's going to work. There it goes. Okay. I think that's pretty much it for the mining drones then. Nice. All right. So then I'm going to need some way to detect... Oh yeah, I forgot to check. What happens when this thing runs out of health? I forgot about that bug. Are they going to stop mining? Or are they just going to start mining the air when the sun runs out of health? Shouldn't be long now. Come on. Didn't give it that much health. Oh, you know what? Actually, I did, because I lowered the rate of fire of the mining laser. Okay, let's give this thing less health for testing really quick. Let's give it like 20. Alright, now let's test it. Alright, where are we at? It should almost instantly run out of health then. Okay, it's still mining, but I don't know if it's doing... Okay, there's no way it still has health. So they do not stop mining. And they're still running into that problem when they run into each other. Okay. Why? I thought I coded them so that they would stop mining when they ran out of... Okay, the projectile I think is good. We don't need to worry about that. I thought that this was... Oh no, they just check if they're in mining range. If in mining range, and we'll do our has target equals target does not equal null. We'll do that. Okay. And we'll just throw that up here. Okay, so has target. And we will throw that in there. Is in mining range and has target. Okay, so they'll at least stop shooting now when it's not there anymore. And then in here, well, we'll put the shooting outside, and then down here we'll do if has target, and we'll just chuck all of that in. So new velocity. Okay, let's move some of this into that if statement. Okay, so target position is going to equal its own position initially. Okay, so new velocity is just going to the target position, so we can just bring that out. Okay, so cool. So now if has target... Oh, wait, no, that also needs the mining range. Okay. Yeah, okay, that's problematic. Okay, if has target and that. Well, no, that's not going to work. Okay, yeah, this is a little more complicated than I was expecting. So they won't even... How does shooting work? Does shooting stay shooting until you tell it to stop? It does. Okay. So I have to tell it when it needs to stop. Var mine bool equals false. Okay, so we'll do that. So I'm gonna have to calculate that at the bottom. And we'll have to do some of this velocity stuff earlier. Okay, so if has target, we'll calculate the mining range. And then we'll do is in mining. We'll do mine equals in mining range. Okay. Then I can ditch that. Okay, and then I'm gonna need to keep target position up there. Okay. And we're gonna set that to the global position, and then we'll bring this down here. Okay, so the target position is its own position. Then if it has a target and it's not in mining range, then it will change its target position to the position of that. Okay. Okay, there we go. That's still pretty messy, but like I said, I can clean this up later. It's not a big deal. So now they should, hopefully, I didn't break everything. And now they should stop moving whenever they get to it. Oh, geez, no, they are just shooting immediately now. Okay. All right, that's great. Okay, so we're going to come over to here. Okay. Actually, I'll leave has target up there. Okay, so has target. Target position equals that. Mine equals false. All right, so if we have a target, and we'll say this, we'll call that movement position instead, because that's kind of confusing otherwise. Oh, I see. That needs to be the target. Okay, so we'll call this var target position. We'll grab that there. Okay. All right, that's a little bit better. All right, so the movement position, target position is equal to the actual position of the target. So it was checking how close it was to itself. Getting pretty close, I think, for me to call it on this stream. Okay, to go get some dinner and play some Resident Evil 9 and not think about this jam for a little bit, because I'm getting a little loopy. Alright. Alright, perfect. So now they're shooting like they're supposed to be shooting. And I should see them stop when the thing is depleted. They're suspiciously not stopping. Oh dear. Yeah, there's no way that they haven't depleted it yet. I really need to get that into the HUD so I can monitor that, but okay, come on. So mine is equal to in mining range, which will only be true if you have a target. Oh, right, but the target doesn't destroy itself. That's right. Okay, so that's fine then. That's not the end of the world. You know, here's an interesting thought. What if I shrink the shooting star the more it gets... Let's try that. Physics process. Let's set its scale. Is there a way to set all of the scales simultaneously? Probably not. Oh, there is scale object. No, that's probably not what I want. Okay. Equals vector 3 .1 times health scale. Do health ratio float equals, let's grab the health component. Okay, and let's say health component dot max health. We'll do var max health float equals that. And then var, wait, does health component even have a way to get the current health? It does not. It's private. Dang. Okay. Well, I can do that with signals. It's not the end of the world. So we'll do func change scale, probably. And what does the health component emit whenever it's damaged? Damage taken. All right, so we'll just copy that, or just the parameters. All right, and then we'll come back into here, and in ready we will do health component dot damage taken dot connect on damage taken. And I think I'm gonna need to take both parameters. So we'll do on damage taken down here, and we'll just take both parameters. I only care about remaining health though. I don't care about how much damage was dealt to it. And we're gonna ditch the physics process. I don't think I'm gonna need that. Okay. So then what I'm going to do is do var max health equals the health component dot max health, and then we'll do var health ratio float equals the remaining health divided by the max health. All right, cool. And then we will set its scale. I guess I do need, well, we'll just do this in regular process. So we'll do desired, we'll call this target scale. And we'll do float equals 1.0. And then in process, we'll just slowly lerp towards this. So we'll do scale. Oh, right, but scale is, you know what, just to keep this simple, we're going to track a scalar or for that as well. I said the word scalar and I typed it. Okay, so there we go, 1.0. So we'll do scale equals lerp f, and we'll do target scale. Well, we'll do scale to target scale, and we will do scale weight. And again, don't use delta directly, that's bad. So we'll use time utils dot, we'll do, I don't know, 1.0, pass in delta. Okay, and then we will do actual scale equals vector3 dot 1 times scale. And then in here, we will set the target scale equal to the health ratio. I think I'm going to clamp that to a range though, or remap it. So the easiest way to do that is to use a lerp. So we will do export var min scale float, and we'll say like 0.3, because if it goes too small, you're not even going to see it anymore. Okay, so then we will do a lerp f, and we'll do from min scale to 1.0, and that is how you remap a float the easy way. Okay, and then we will do export var scale acceleration float equals 1.0. Okay, cool. All right, so now this thing should automatically resize itself as it takes damage. It'll shrink. And then if this works as intended, we'll add in the signal. Oh, there it goes. That's interesting. I think the particle emitter stays the same size regardless of scale. All right, well that actually might be slightly problematic. Or no, maybe they... Yeah, I think it worked. Okay, that's pretty cool. That worked pretty well. Although you can't see it from certain angles, but I think it worked. So yeah, okay, it shrunk size. All right, I think we're good. So then I just need to add a signal here to indicate when it's been depleted. And we're just going to call it depleted instead of killed like we did with the other ones. And we'll do health component dot killed dot connect depleted dot emit. And then we're going to unbind the one parameter that receives because we don't need it. And we're going to do a connect one shot so that we don't somehow deplete the star twice. And then I think I'm just going to use the class name for this. Okay, so then in the director, we need to monitor this thing. Where did I... Oh, there it is. Okay. So we are going to need to watch it when it depletes. So we need a func. Well, actually, I guess the director doesn't need to know, does it? It's actually just game that needs to know whether or not it's depleted. So actually, that's a good point. So, and in fact, you don't even need to know. We'll actually say all enemies destroyed. Or all fighters destroyed. We'll say that. Okay. So then in here, when we emit game over, we're just going to check and say var or all fighters destroyed bool equals mission dot fighters equals to destroyed fighters. There we go. All right. And then in game, we will just grab a reference. We don't really need to update anything with it. We just need to connect a signal to it. Okay. And then okay, so then all I need to do is detect, let's see, where do I want to do that? Okay, we'll add a function here. We'll say func connect shooting star. Now, if I wanted to do more game modes, there's better ways of doing this that are more abstracted. So you're not doing this, you know, you're not hard coding the rules of the game directly like this. But for this thing, there's not enough time in the jam to add, you know, for instance, a time trial or other modes like that. So we'll just do this directly. So we will do, we're going to use find children. And we're going to basically copy the same thing that we did here for player, but we're going to use shooting star instead. Okay, and then we'll say shooting, we'll just call it stars for... Okay, so if stars is empty, failed to start game, no shooting star. Then we'll say if stars is greater than 1, map contains multiple shooting stars. And I'm also going to return an error for that because there is no way that that should be valid. And then we will say shooting star here. And we'll just call that star. Okay. So then I just need to do star.depleted.connect on star depleted. And again, we'll do connect one shot. I might need to make that deferred, but we'll see. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and make that function. This doesn't take anything, so we won't worry about that. And I think, I'm not sure yet if I want to have the game end whenever the star is depleted. Well, I guess it would, there's not really much point in continuing. My thought was that you would get credits for destroying enemies, so if I just end the game as soon as the star is depleted, then that's not, it robs you of the chance to finish off the rest of the enemies. But presumably the enemies would just leave, so I guess I'll just have it end the game anyways. There's not much point for them to stay if there's no more star. Okay, so then if the star gets depleted, the mission will also end. And I'll probably add some timers in there so that I can trigger some animations or something, but all right, and then I need to return error.ok from that and actually call it up here. So whenever we set up the level, we'll do load error equals connect shooting star, and same thing. Failed to connect shooting star, unable to start game. All right, cool. So now the game should automatically end if the star is depleted. So it'll end if I manage to shoot all of these guys, or if the star is depleted, and I'll just have to add some logic to report. Oh, wow, yeah, okay. That went by fast. All right, so let's give that shooting star some more health. And I'm gonna need to connect that into, oh, I guess I do need another signal here on the shooting star. So we're gonna do signal, oh, what would I call that? Resources taken. And we'll do remaining resources, or remaining resource ratio. Okay, and then I will need to connect the other signal then, so we'll do health component dot damage taken dot connect. I actually will have to connect that, so we'll do on damage taken. There's not any way around that. Oh, I already have that. Never mind. Resources taken. And we will just do dot emit, and we will send the health ratio. Okay. So then there's a couple different ways of doing this. I could either have the player directly monitor the shooting star, or I could have the game do it. I think for the HUD, the player should probably monitor it directly, not the... The only trick there is whether or not the shooting star is going to be instantiated when the player is instantiated. And there's other stuff that might need to come from... Yeah, like remaining number of enemies needs to come from the director. Yeah, okay. It's slightly problematic. It might be easier to just do that from game then than having player do it. Because if something else is already reaching out to connect to it, it's probably fine. Okay, so we'll do star dot resources taken dot connect on star resources taken, and I don't need to connect anything else to it, and we'll just plug that in here. And that does need to take a remaining resource ratio. Okay, so now this is where I need to connect to the player. And I'm going to need to set some stuff on them. Because normally I would make the player, the HUD, I would actually typically have a child as the game. Words. Typically I would make the HUD a child of the game node, and the game would just update the HUD directly. Because usually the game knows more about the state, and the HUD needs to display the state. In this case, though, the HUD is actually a literal 3D thing that's going to be in the scene. And it's going to be part of the player because it needs to inherit the player's velocity and position and all that. So I can't really have it. I mean, you could have it be part of game, but it would be really messy. So this is going to be somewhat interesting how this is going to work. It seems weird to just set some data on the HUD directly or on the player directly, but I guess that's what I'll do. So I guess in player, we're going to add another progress bar. So we will add, and again, I'll change these out for proper bars, but we'll say, I don't know, star bar. I don't know. We'll call it that. We'll set it at a max value of 1, step 0.1, whatever initial value will be 1. And we'll move that above health. Okay, and then in here, we will just export a variable for that. So we'll do export var we'll say object or remaining resource ratio float equals 1.0. And then down here, we'll just update it. So we'll say, star bar. That would help if I grab a reference to it. I'm about to the point where I'm going to bring this out into its own class because this is kind of getting messy, having the UI mixed into the player movement code. Value equals remaining resource ratio. Okay, so then we'll go back up into game, and in here we will do player dot remaining resource ratio equals that. And player doesn't have a death component, so I'm not going to worry about them dying. I'm just going to connect a signal to them, which occurs to me I am going to need a signal for that too. But now I should be able to watch the health actually get depleted as the mining ships try to mine it. Yep, okay, there it goes. Oh wow, yeah, they drain it pretty fast. I might want to give it more health than that. I might also consider pausing the timer, the spawn timer for these guys, because it looks like one just instantly spawned, and I think that only happened. Yeah, okay. So a couple things. I could either increase the asteroid health. I think I'm gonna give it 1,000 just for simplicity, but I think the drones, I'm probably gonna change the rate of fire on the mining weapon so that they don't deplete the stars so fast, because two of them already nearly destroyed the thing. Did not really give me enough time to stop them. Yeah, that's more reasonable. It's bad enough that when two of them spawn in, you want to deal with it. Okay, there we go. All right, and I'm taking damage when I hit him. That's good. It's starting to feel like a game now, so that's a good sign. I definitely think I'm going to have to drop the inventory idea, though. There's just not there's no chance that that's going to get done. My thought is that I either do a sequence of stages or of missions that are increasingly more difficult, and I maybe give the player an option to boost a stat, if anything, or I just do, I don't know, something like that maybe. But yeah, it definitely feels more attainable now. And I'm out of ammo. Okay. So I need to add the number of enemies on screen. So we'll go to the player. And we need to add a... I'm just going to do a count for that. So we'll do a label. And we'll just do 00 out of 00. And just keep it like that. And we'll say remaining enemies. Well, I don't need that. I just need... Okay. All right, so then we've got that label. So then I need some way for the director to tell game when an enemy has been destroyed. Which I'm going to need that for the UI anyways. So these are the best place to do it. So we will do a new signal and we'll say signal fighter killed. And we will say, well, we'll say fighter destroyed. That makes more sense in this context. And we'll say remaining fighters int. And then we will do I don't know if I'm gonna do anything when a miner is destroyed, so we'll leave that be for now. So remaining fighters, so we'll do fighter destroyed, and we'll emit that down here from fighter killed. And we'll do that after that, and we'll do emit. Get remaining fighters would be destroyed fighters. Okay, so we do yeah, so I need to do that, and we'll say mission.fighters minus destroyed fighters. Okay, and then in game we will listen to that fighter destroyed mission. So do director fighter destroyed.connect on fighter destroyed, and that doesn't need to be one shot. So we'll make this function, and we have in here remaining fighters, and we'll do player remaining fighters equals to that. Okay, so then we'll go add that to the player script. I think what I might do is actually just directly grab the user interface. Like try to find the HUD in game and set that directly versus doing it with these. In fact, I'm actually going to separate those variables. Okay, so then, but for now we'll do enemies label. Well, actually we call that remaining enemies label. And we will do remaining enemies label dot text equals, and we're going to do a format string for this. We're going to do 2D or 02D, I think is what I want. And we'll do remaining fighters. And then it occurs to me that's going to be zeroed out at the start. So whenever we connect the player, okay, so we need to do mission on, where am I connecting? Oh, there it is. Okay, so we need to do player dot remaining fighters equals mission. Yeah. Actually, there's a way around that. What I can do instead is have director emit a signal when a fighter is spawned. So we'll do that. So fighter spawned, and I'm probably going to want to do that anyways, especially for the miners. Okay, so spawn fighter. I'm going to do fighter spawn dot emit, and I need to send out remaining enemies. Okay. And then in game, we'll just listen to that as well. So we'll do director dot fighter spawn dot connect fighter spawned. And this is effectively going to take all the same, or do the same things. So these probably could have been the same function, but I might want to add some custom logic there. Okay, so now, and that is not a valid format string apparently. What did I do wrong? Not all arguments converted. Ah, yeah, because that is the wrong symbol for a format string. Okay, cool. So it says 10, which I think is the correct number for this mission. All right. All right, we're doing pretty good, although I don't know where the other enemies went to. Oh, there they are. They all clumped up again. Yeah, I've got to find a better way to make sure that those guys don't run into each other. All right, and okay, cool. These should be the last two, so the game should end whenever I get them. And oh, where'd he go? Oh, there you are. Come here. There we go. Okay, awesome. That worked. So then let me change the mission to say that there can be more miners running at the same time. And see if they can deplete the sun faster than I can keep up. We'll set them, I don't know, we'll set it to 10. And see what happens. And we'll just ignore the fighters for now and let see if the game does end when the sun gets fully depleted. Although I guess it dawns on me only 4 of them are going to be mining it at once. Yeah, because they're all going to bunch up again. I've still got to fix that. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I've got to figure out what's causing that to happen. Well, I know what's causing it to happen. I think I'm going to have to use the 3D avoidance system in Godot to make them stop running into each other. Yeah, I think that's about the only way I can avoid that. It's kind of funny that they wait in line to destroy it. Okay, perfect. And it did end. So the only condition that isn't being checked right now is whether or not the player died. So I can check that really quick. So we can just add a signal for killed. And then where's my health component at? There it is. So I can just say health component dot killed dot connect. I can just do killed dot emit dot unbind 1, and we'll do connect one shot. All right. And then in game, whenever we spawn the player, I'll just grab player dot killed dot connect on player killed connect one shot. Okay, and then we'll just add that down here. All the game over ones will be down this way, and we'll do the same thing. Okay, so now all I need to do is just smash the player into something and make it so that the enemies can actually hit me. That would be helpful. All right, just keep smashing into the sun. And smash into one of these guys too, just to make sure that still works. Yep, okay. And one more hit ought to do it, and then the game should end. Yes, okay, perfect. All right, I think all of the game over conditions are working. And the game win condition is working. It's just there's no stats being generated and the stats screen isn't there. So then the only thing that isn't working at this point is the enemies are not shooting at me. So I need to give them a custom weapon to make that work. I kind of want to give them the standard blaster weapon, but I think I want them to have a different color blaster. So I'm tempted to just clone the blaster weapon, or maybe change it so it can take a different kind of projectile. Because I kind of want to give them red or something. Where's the... oh, right, it's the script. Right, so blaster weapon... it wouldn't be that hard to change that to a different scene. The enemies do need unlimited ammo, though. And I kind of think their blaster bolts need to be special. I don't think they're going to be the standard bolt. Because the trick is... shot leading is really difficult, especially with the player moving around as much as they are. So I'm inclined to fake the enemy projectiles and have some enemies that deliberately miss and potentially just fire fake projectiles that wouldn't damage you even if they did hit you. And then I'm tempted to have the enemies, if they're off screen, periodically just directly damage you. Like a random chance that they just hurt you without even firing a projectile. Or if they do fire a projectile, it's just a homing projectile that is guaranteed to hit. Just so that you have some amount of damage taken. And then maybe... yeah, because that would be the easiest way, because then I don't have to worry about shot leading or anything like that. As long as it doesn't feel too cheap. So then it would just mean that how often you get hit is just dependent on how many of them are circling around you. Yeah. Okay, that could work. Let me reset the mission. Let's see, where was that? Oh, there it is, test mission. Let's do max active. You know what, actually, I'm going to leave it at 10 just to remind myself that that's still a problem. Okay, so then for the drone weapon, I think I will... yeah, I'm tempted to actually just give them two weapons. One that's guaranteed to hit you and one that's guaranteed to miss. You know what, I think my brain's kind of fried. I've been staring at this enemy code for like 2 days now. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and call it here. I'm going to go take a step back, do something else, probably clean up the code. I think what I'll do off screen or off camera is change the blaster weapon so that it can take any kind of projectile. And I think I might also remove the mining weapon and just use the custom projectile I made for it and make the blaster weapon take a custom projectile type so that I can just use one weapon for everything. And then I think the plan will be what I said. The enemies, when they're off screen, will fire a projectile that's guaranteed to hit you. So that I don't have to worry about shot leading. It'll just like home in immediately to you and deal damage. And then I'll have a second blaster that they can fire, which will be guaranteed to shoot somewhere that you will see it. And that's the one they'll shoot most of the time, but it won't hurt you. It'll be a fake projectile. And then that way you get the chaos of having projectiles going everywhere and looking like you're nearly missing them, but in reality it's just scripted to always miss you. And then the ones that do hit you are only hitting you because you let an enemy stay close to you for too long. Because the main point of the game is honestly that the damage is almost secondary at this point. How much damage you take is not the main point. It's just how quickly can you get rid of all of the targets, and can you stop the miners from stealing the resources while you do that. So I think that's the main goal then. So with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and call it. I plan on streaming tomorrow. I don't think I'm going to stream Friday. I might do multiple streams tomorrow too. I may break it up. Friday, probably no stream. I'm going to just be heads down, doing as much as I can, I think, on the user interface. And probably a lot of, well, I don't want to do the polish off camera. Well, I'll figure out something to do Friday. Maybe work on the settings, something that's not very interesting to watch. And then I'll probably be back Saturday for at least part of it. But I think once it gets close to submission time, I'm going to cut it and just be heads down so that I can get whatever I need done. So if you stuck around, this is a long one today. I appreciate it, especially VOD watchers. If you're working on your own game jam or your own game in general, let me know. I'm always love to see what people are doing. Good luck on your own projects, and take it easy.